Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane. I wish you all a very happy Easter. Today we are going to be continuing to look at the draft prospects as we are definitely starting to get into a little bit more of the quiet time of year for agencies past. We're about 3 weeks out from the draft or so it's a time for contemplation and to look and consider all the particular scenarios that might break down come draft day for the Seattle Seahawks. And this year is definitely even more, I think, intriguing and harder to predict than even prior years. You've got a good 14 years of a baseline set by the, not necessarily the, I'm going to call it prior regime, as you have Carroll and Schneider, but certainly Carroll's influence in some of those drafting decisions versus maybe where John will be this year and the type of players he might lean to versus the type of players he would have leaned to in the past. I still think, though, there is a way here at times to look at some of those players and things that we've heard him talk about that he has a little bit of a preference for as far as what he looks for in players. And then also we can kind of get a little bit of a look for what certainly Mike Macdonald is going to be looking for in the type of team he's assembling, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And then with Grubb, what's going to fit to his scheme. So while it is definitely hard to predict exactly the type of players they'll target in this particular year's draft, it still doesn't mean that to me there isn't a great opportunity here to kind of look at the guys that they could potentially really target here and lock in on them. And so I've put together a pretty good list of sleepers. For the most part, I think I've stayed away for the first round. I'm not trying to call a first rounder a sleeper. There's one guy I think I'm going to have on this list that might be a fringe first round prospect, but it's also a little bit undetermined on exactly where he's going to fall in this draft. So it wouldn't surprise me if he goes in the first. It wouldn't surprise me if he dips down into the second round. But he's a guy that I think is getting a little bit slept on in this draft as far as what he brings to the table, especially for what it's going to be leading to for our Hawks. So I'll just go down through the line here, but I've kind of looked to target a couple of these guys that stood out to me. I'll try to explain why I think not only they're sleepers, but why I think they might fit here for our Seahawks if they were to look at them come draft day. But they will be all over the place for the most part in this draft, anywhere from the first through about the fifth round or so, sixth, seventh rounders. It's a little harder on targeting those kind of diamonds that are out there, but somewhere in that neighborhood. And I might be a little bit higher on them than others. That's just the way that sometimes goes in this draft season. I thank you guys today for watching. Please do hit that like button if you could for me. That would be much appreciated. And let's start off with that first guy that I was just talking about a second ago, who is being spoken about in certain respects. And I know other folks that have covered the Hawks have talked about him a little bit, being Darius Robinson, an edge out of Missouri, who is a very big man at 6'5", 285, 34.5-inch long arms, and that's coming off of the edge. But what stands out about Darius is when you look at the other edge rushers in this class, you have technicians with their hands like Latu or Braylon Trice. You've got the twitchy edge guys like Jared Verse. You've got Dallas Turner, who's got a little bit of everything in his bag to a bit of a degree. But as far as the really supremely talented power edges go, this guy may be the best of the bunch. And I think that this is a very, very interesting position to take a look at for the Seahawks and them targeting in this draft. Because when you hear about a guy like Joel Klatt, who's covered football and talked with Mike Macdonald and understands very much what he's looking for in the defense, referencing the need for hard edges. That's the term that he used. And what he's meaning by that is the big edges that can set that edge. They're not going to get moved. That there's not a tackle in the game that can move that edge off of the spot. The Seattle Seahawks at one time 10 years ago actually had a player that they put into this position and who flourished in this role. And that was the big old Mr. Red Bryant, son-in-law of one Mr. Jacob Green, former Seahawks legend. And his job was to come out there in early downs and set that hard edge, and you were not going to be able to run to red side. He was going to manhandle tackles out there. And that's what you get with Darius Robinson. It isn't just so much that he's got a bull rush. Yeah, he's got that. It's that he's taking tackles and he's flinging them side to side to side until he finally decides, okay, now comes the swim move. Okay, now I'm just going to knock his hands off and get on to the quarterback. Very, very tough guy to block up front. Coaches in college football that were on the opposition talked about him endlessly about how hard of a problem he was to deal with. He's got the legit power. When you look at necessarily his combine testing scores at the 21 reps, I don't know if you guys heard with him, but he of course said a little bit, he had some disparaging remarks to say about the bench press, that it's on this kind of soft ground, that when you go to lift the bench, there's a little bit of give to it where you need that hard ground when you're lifting the bench to get your your real leverage into it a little bit. He's also got the 34.5-inch long arms. And anybody out there that's been in a weight room and has seen those guys that have the little arms that can get on there and they're just, they're throwing those 315-pound plates up. When you got that longer arm, you got a lot longer way to go than those little stubby arm guys. You gotta let that thing travel all the way back down and all the way back up. It's more to get through that. So he's better than the 21 reps. He's stronger than the 21 reps that he presented. This could be a type of guy that you have almost a shock to the system and the fan base, potentially of a guy who could be picked at like 16 even, that would totally throw the fan base into disarray on it. But I think it's very possible because he stands out in that skill that he brings that is very much a necessity in this defense. And in a lot of respects is sort of a little, not where the defense begins, but maybe one of its beginning places that it looks to structure itself. Hard edges. What do the Seahawks have right now? You have Uchenna Nwosu, who can set a good edge, certainly. Boye Mafe is an excellent edge setter. But then what happens when we get to 3 and 4? We got Derek Hall, who was not setting very many edges very well last year. And you have Darrell Taylor, who hasn't set an edge in his life. So you do have a little bit of a thinness here at this position. And looking forward into the future on this, moving into next offseason, you do have a theoretical way of getting out from under the Uchenna Nwosu deal if you want to at that point. If they're looking to clear that cap space, and they would have the ready-made guy waiting in the wings here with a guy like Darius Robinson, who can play essentially the Jadeveon Clowney role within this defense that JD played in with the Ravens last year. So a guy that I know that not a lot of people are talking about for the Hawks or connecting him to the Hawks, but this is a guy that's got as good a chance as any edge, I think, because this is one of those missing parts of this game. I've got 2 of these power edges here that are going to be on my list as far as sleepers go. I know he's a very prime prospect on many boards, but on other boards, people are kind of selling low on him because he's a 4.95 edge that has a 1.73 split. What are you going to do with that? Well, it's when you watch the tape, turn that on first and foremost, and he's going to show you exactly what he's going to do. My next guy is a guy that I just got caught hot to trot on here recently. I was late in the film session of checking this guy out. Finally got around to him after I was hearing so much about him, and indeed the tape absolutely lit it up. That's going to be Malik Washington out of Virginia. And this is a 5'8.5", so a very, very mighty might type wide receiver at the position. A guy that I think because of that lack of size might get lost in the shuffle. But if you're thinking about Malik Washington, think Steve Smith to a lesser degree. Think Brandon Cooks. Think that small guy with that explosiveness, right? It's not just the leaping ability, it's the explosive leaping ability, right? If you watch basketball, what makes Zion Johnson so dynamic around the rim? It's not just the fact that he can leap high, it's how fast he gets into that jump, into that explosiveness. And what that does for a guy at 5'8.5" with 30 3/8" arms is it elongates his catch radius and gives him a much bigger catch radius than he normally have. And you can see that here by his vertical leap and his broad jump. Almost 43 inches as far as his vertical leap. I mean, that's getting close to kind of Jordan territory, right? Wasn't Jordan supposedly 45 inches? Something like that. So he's definitely a guy that can get up and go get it at his size. He's a great route runner, a great feel for the position just naturally out there. He's got good hands as well. He was the 3rd highest graded wide receiver by PFF last season. So he brings a well-refined role. He'll get in there and block at his size. Yeah, he's going to get thrown around at times, but he's definitely willing. I think he's one of the better yak guys in this draft. You get him the ball in his hands, and he gets up to speed so very quick, evidenced by that 4.47 and that 1.53 10-yard split, that this is just a really dynamic guy with the ball in his hands, on top of being a guy that can give you some contested catch for his size, on top of being a really good route runner and strong hands. He just plays the game really, really hard too. I mean, this is a guy that you talk about, not the size of the dog, but the size of the fight in the dog. That's this guy right here. He's got a lot of that to his game, and you just feel his feisty and competitiveness. I don't like throwing out the Steve Smith kind of comps. I really don't, and he's not that good. But some of that same skill set that Steve Smith brought to play in his game is exactly what you get with Malik Washington. And again, a guy that I think gets lost in the shuffle because there's so many wide receivers in this draft through the first 3 rounds. Here's a guy that might dip on down through. And as you're looking at the Hawks right now, I think there is a potential need or an opening here on this team for a guy that can do a little bit more of the yak stuff, depending on whether or not Eskridge can stay afloat here moving on into the future. So I think it also, to a degree, would fill a bit of a need while getting great value for him as you're getting him maybe a little bit into that 3rd roundish range. I don't think he's going to go real high because of his lack of height and short arms. But boy, was he one of the funner tape watches for me as far as any of the receivers in this past year. And 111 receptions last year, 13 184 yards, so almost 1,400 yards receiving. Quarterback play was all right for Virginia, but it wasn't like it was, he wasn't getting cats chasing. He wasn't getting Jaden Daniels level of production or level of, play from his wide receivers, or Michael Penix level of play from his wide receivers, or from his quarterback play. Sorry, not wide receivers, but from his quarterback play. So not to be undersold there. Malik Washington's a pretty solid guy that I like in this draft. Another guy, let's keep it in the wide receiver role of things. Another guy late for me to the party on this one is a Javon Baker. Javon Baker is just kind of built with that ideal wide receiver size to a degree. 6'1", 202, maybe a little bit light, but he's got the 32-inch long arms. Maybe like him a little bit faster than the 4.54. I'd argue that his play speed is a little bit faster than his timed 40. And he does have the 158 yard split, so he does got the acceleration that you're looking for from the position. Didn't run a wide route tree, wasn't asked to run a wide route tree out there, but he was at UCF really good as far as just taking the top off the defense and finding a way to stack guys over and over again, just naturally able to do it. And he could work a lot off of those deep routes back to the short stuff in a lot of respects. He's an okay route runner. That's a little bit of the tar part, but he's a great open field guy. Another guy with some yak ability, sharp cuts in the open field. He can be going this way, and suddenly he's going that way on one step. Not extra collect steps, but just one step, and then he's going back this other direction. He averaged nearly 22 yards a catch last year, 1,139 yards. He's very, very smooth to me in and out of his breaks, which is part of why I think that the route running will improve. It was part of it's like the DK Metcalf thing where UCF just wasn't having him run a real wide route tree. So he can only run what he's going to run. We're going to run the 9, run the stop route, maybe do an over route occasionally. That's pretty much what we're going to call upon you to do. And he did it well. But I think he's got some nice athleticism for the position. Another guy that'll dip down in this draft a little bit, I think, get lost in the shuffle. And then you're getting him at really good value a little bit later on in the draft. He's maybe not going to wow with a tremendous amount of upside, but I think he's pretty ready to go, and he's an outside guy. I don't think he's much like maybe Malik, who will end up finding himself more as kind of a slot guy into the future. Here's a guy that actually I think can truly play on that outside, and he's just got that knack for getting on top of defenses. He plays more like a 4-4 guy than a 4-5 guy. And I think that speed will translate to the next level, and he's just got a natural feel for how to play the position that really stood out to me from wide receivers in this class. Let's go over to the defensive side of the ball. Man out there in Texas Tech, a safety, Darian Taylor Demerson, or DTD. It's dynamite. This is a really, really fun, exciting free safety. 3 years as a starter there, 10 interceptions. This is the type of safety I think that you're looking to bring into, essentially this defense right now, which is the do-it-all guy. He can play, I think, free. He can do some strong stuff. He's tremendously fast at 4'4", 152, 10-yard split. Also gave you a 38-inch vertical leap, so he is explosive, he is quick, and he is fast from the safety position. He can be a rangy guy to me from the free safety position. He can give you a little bit of some strong safety stuff. He's a little bit maybe undersized to a degree on that. You'd have him probably more often than not drifting a little bit more into free than you would into strong. But I think you could actually ask him at times too to move over and be a corner to the outside with his speed and his ability out there and his coverage ability. So I like the versatility. I like the upside. I like how fast he is, and I think he's a guy that's going to dip down in his draft a little bit because he's not being given as much acclaim as we come forward. But to me, he should be, because he does provide that multi-skill set you need from the safety position between both free safety and strong safety. And from an instinctual standpoint, I think he's one of the better safeties in this draft with his instincts, knowing where to go, not getting caught in misdirection, not getting, sucked in and take the cheese on play action and then get looped up over the top. If he's got to stay clean in center field, he stays clean. If he's got to come down in coverage and drop down on a tight end, he'll do that as well. So a guy that gives you just a good all-around game. There's not one exciting element from him other than maybe that explosiveness and that speed, but he would give you some of that on the back end back to this defense in a way that we kind of haven't had maybe since a guy like an Earl Thomas to this degree as far as this explosiveness goes. He's not Earl. He's not necessarily that fast, but hey, he's in the neighborhood. Let's say that. He's in the neighborhood. Middle linebackers are going to be a position that the Seattle Seahawks are going to have to take a look at this draft, and most likely I'm thinking they're probably going to end up drafting 2. Doesn't mean necessarily too high, but it means that you're probably going to be coming away with, at some point or another, 2 of those positions in this draft. And a guy that has to me, just kind of stood out as again, not a first, not a second, not a third round guy here that we're talking about. This isn't going to be one of your creme de la creme kind of players, maybe more of a fourth, fifth roundish kind of guy here. And Darius Darius Muasa. We're just going to call him Darius. Darius, 6 foot, 225, part of this new mold of undersized linebacker, 4.7 tested, not very fast speed-wise, but look at the 10-yard split, 159. So he's got almost a running back like 10-yard split in his game, 36.5 for almost a 10 broad. So fine enough numbers there. Would you like him a little more explosive? Yeah, but this is why he dips down in the draft. And so he is going to necessarily fall a little bit in this draft. 31.5-inch arms, not undersized, but also not super long either. But this is another guy, a little bit like we talked with Darian, where you're looking for the defenders that have all-around skill sets and can do a variety of different things really well. Not that this is my box set of skills I bring to you and you've got to keep me in my box. You take me out of my box, I'm going to fail. But this is a guy that's got a lot of different boxes that he can utilize. Outstanding blitzer, 15.5 sacks over the past 4 years. Really nice swim move. He's got that Bobby Wagner swim move, where he bounces to the side, swim moves over the top of the running back, and then gets clear to the quarterback. He's got a really good amount of dip. I love what he does in coverage as well. I think he's at his best in zone coverage, which I think from the linebacker position, we're going to be running a lot of that. He gets back to his zone drops really quick. That 159 10-yard split shows up on the quickness. And he's also got a little bit of, this is sort of your poor man's Jeremiah Trotter in this draft. A little bit of that squatty body kind of looking linebacker, but has that really nice lateral bounce to him, which then helps him to not only find his way to the hole without having to flip his hips and run to the hole, but they can kind of track bouncing sideways, but then also helps them to get off the second level offensive linemen that are trying to get to them. Lineman comes, I bounce around the lineman. I never have to even take the lineman with heads up contact. I just bounce around past him and then get back into the nature of the play. So he's really, really adept at that as well. On top of all of this, of course, you need your middle linebacker. If you're going to be a middle linebacker, you better tackle. I think he's a very solid tackler. He looks to get down there and grab onto that wrap and roll near side thigh, the hawk tackling technique. I think you see him doing a lot of that, but he just does a good job of getting his hands around the leg, wrapping and rolling on those guys. And he'll give up his body to do it, which I like. With some of those linebackers try to stay high and just kind of corral the guy and, bring him down to the ground a little bit. So top end speed isn't there with him, which is going to cause him to dip, but I think that this would be just a great fit in Mike Macdonald's defense. Probably could slide him maybe a little bit between Mike and Will on that side of things too, but I think that he can just do everything you need him to do as the skill set, and a guy that you get maybe in the 4th or 5th round that just maybe not guys a lot of people are maybe talking about necessarily. Here's one of my favorite players of the draft up next, and this is a guy that I think has looked as close to me coming out of the safety position as any player that I have seen since Cam Chancellor's left this league. We have a lot of drafts. It's happened year after year, where people want to make the Cam Chancellor comparison. And they'll say, well, this guy's the Cam of this draft. That guy's the Cam of this draft. And here's a guy to me that for the first time has stood out to be like, nope, here's your Cam of the draft. He plays safety. He's been next to Cam Kitchens out there at the University of Miami. He is asked to do a lot of things out there from that position. He's asked to do a lot of things that I think are pretty similar to what he would be asked to do in this Seahawks defense. He is outside of maybe not as much of maybe the deep zone stuff. I think Miami didn't ask him to do as much, but he is a pure hitter. He's got that natural ability to use his size and his ability to get up to speed really fast and turn that into explosive power as a hitter, which is what is so reminiscent to me of Cam Chancellor. That's what made Cam as much as anything. It wasn't just the hit. It was that he was going to come at you full speed and he didn't need to have to kind of set his hit up. He could just kind of go, okay, here it comes, load it up. And then hit the strike. And that's just what this guy does too. He's got a fantastic highlight tape if you watch it as far as that goes. But then when you just turn on the film, you watch him assignment correct, in the right spots, willing to tackle, willing to come up and do what he needs to do. Athletic as hell for his size. He's 6'4", 231, but very, very athletic. Another thing reminiscent to me of Cam in that ability to still move at that size and move very fluidly, move very smoothly. Also, long as hell. He gets into his zone drops, and especially when you get to all 22 shots of him from the backside of the quarterback, you can feel the quarterback trying to fit this into holes in the zone, and you can feel this guy's go gadget arms just in play. The quarterback can feel like, I've got to get it up over this hand, up over this. I got to put a little bit more arc over this ball to dip it into the hole shot that is there in the coverage. But his length and size just kind of prevents me from wanting to take that shot. It just dissuades all the way around, even those type of throws down there. He does give you maybe a guy that's going to probably translate down into linebacker when it's all said and done. Can he play the Kyle Hamilton role in this defense? I mean, I would say the Kyle Hamilton role in a certain amount of respects is a little bit like the playing some linebacker at times, not just playing the safety position purely. Now, this isn't maybe Kyle in certain respects, but I'm putting up Kyle Hamilton's testing numbers here next to James Williams, and you can see that they have some similarities, though he's not as explosive an athlete as Hamilton. Didn't jump as far, didn't jump as high as far as the vert, and James is going to be one of two guys we're going to look at for this kind of Hamilton-like role in this defense. But still a guy that even if he moves down to linebacker and becomes a will, I just showed you Darius Masawi at 225, and here you got James Williams at 231 playing the safety, so probably even more room to add another 5, 6, 7, 10 pounds onto his frame if you want him to do that to play the will, and then he'd be a good-sized will in this day and age if you asked him to do that. He'd have great coverage instincts. He'd be a good run defender as he has shown out there in college, a complete skill set that he does bring, I believe. And so I just think this would be a nice fit here, even if he can't become the Hamilton guy, even if he is just the will guy. We only signed these two guys to one-year contracts in free agency, in Dodson and in Jerome Baker. So you do need to look for some help here into the future on these positions. And this would be a guy, if you're making him transition from straight safety position more to a linebacker role, here you're going to be able to give him a whole year to just kind of have him learn the position and figure it out and understand it. And for those of you maybe looking for history on this, Mike Macdonald last year, of course, remember they drafted that Clemson linebacker very early last year when they still had Patrick Queen and when they still had Roquan Smith. Part of the reason you could predict the fact Queen was going to move on is that the Ravens had already a year out had the replacement waiting in the wings. They didn't need to make that sign because they had the guy there. But that was a guy that did need at that time a year to kind of sit in there and get his footing and kind of figure out what was what. He was not going to be ready to start day one in that defense for the Ravens. And a fun prospect last year he was. So same way they may go here with James Williams. Really fun player. Don't know exactly where he's going to be drafted. Do teams view him as a safety? Do view him as a linebacker? Are there too many teams that might view him as a tweener, causing him to drop a little bit? Hard to say. He didn't blow off the top of the building at the combine there with testing numbers. They're fine. They're good. Especially for linebacker, they're fine. At safety, they're probably a little bit average to below average, quite frankly, aside from the 1.59, maybe 10-yard split. So fun player, guy that might fit really well into this defense with the versatility that he brings. Let's go back to the wide receivers, and another wide receiver not being talked about a lot in this draft, but a wide receiver that I again felt myself just having a little bit of a fondness for in watching the tape. That's going to be Germaine Burton at Alabama. Kid started out his career originally at Georgia, highly looked at as far as a kind of a prospect, and was going to be that next guy to kind of ascend out there and be that guy. And then he ended up going to Alabama. Now, Alabama, he's been pretty good. Even over 4 years, he's been pretty solid with his production. But over the last 2 years, he's been really good. 1,500 total yards over the last 2 years, 15 total touchdowns. Once every, I think it is like 7 catches, he gets a touchdown. So just a touchdown maker. If you're looking for and I know I do these references to older Seahawks players, and maybe this is where the fondness for me with Burton kind of developed, much like with James Williams. If it reminds me of a former great Seahawk, I mean, sue me if I don't develop a little bit of a, hey, this guy right here, let's get this. I mean, it's the way it is. And this guy reminds me a lot of Doug Baldwin. His competitiveness off the line of scrimmage, through the route, and dealing with physicality, just refusing to let you knock him off his spot. We've got a lot of just like, prancing, preening kind of receivers out there that the first time they get a little bit of, little contact, oh, I can't catch it, or I can't get it back into my route. Ref, save me, ref, save me. That's not what you get with this guy. He'll take the contact and get back upfield. He's quick into his breaks and out of his breaks. He's got some initial first step quickness. He reminds me in this draft, he's the player to me in this draft that reminds me maybe closest of a Doug Baldwin. He's not necessarily got as much yak that Doug had. Doug wasn't a supreme yak guy, but could give you a little bit of that. I don't think this guy gives you a lot of yak ability, but what stands out to me is that he is a pure receiver. He runs great routes. He's got really strong hands. He's got an ability to with that explosive jumping ability, a little bit like Malik Washington had, like Doug had as well, right? Not only you can get up there, but you can get up there fast, and he can do that too, and it helps him to, again, elongate that catch radius for a guy at 31-inch long arms, 6 feet tall. Not the biggest guy necessarily out there on the field, but he's got a really big heart. And a part to consider in with this is, especially into this year, he didn't have as good a quarterback play. There's a lot of times where he's breaking open this past year, and you're seeing errant, poor throws. That was more of kind of a scrambling quarterback out there at Alabama. Some people are buying that guy as a pro prospect, but in watching the tape on some of the guys in this draft and watching how he's playing the quarterback position, it is not a guy that this made it necessarily easy on Burton for him in this past year to go out there and be really, really successful. But 38.5-inch vert, 11.1 broad jump as well. So that broad jump, something to definitely pay attention to as far as this guy's got that 6 foot size, but he's got that explosiveness. And if I can jump over the top of this corner, it doesn't matter if we're neck and neck as far as the size wise, I can create that late separation in a route to go make that catch, especially if I have the strong hands and the contested catch skills, which is exactly what Germaine Burton brings to the table. Next guy up that we're going to look at does not test, and I wanted to include this one quarterback on this board, and one guy that stood out as maybe the guy that the Seahawks would look to target in this draft, or that I would maybe hope for them to target. And I've liked this guy going back to last year, watching him. Really had the hard luck this past year with Jordan Travis, where he was having a tremendous year. He was pushing his value up within the draft and making people go, man, maybe a second round pick here with this guy. 2 years of really, really outstanding productivity. And then he had the new back tackle that they're about outlawing happen to him at the college level and broke his foot badly at the end, and that's definitely reducing him now, going from a guy that might have crept up into the second round to maybe now dipping into 4th, 5th round range because of that injury. He's not going to bring a big arm. That's the first and foremost thing you need to understand with Jordan. He's not going to bring the biggest of frames. He is definitely going to be an undersized kind of cat out there. But he is a guy who's got a very good acumen for the position. He processes really well in the pocket. You see him going through multiple reads. You see him using eye discipline to move safeties. So he does smart things to be able to work around maybe arm strength limitations. He throws with great anticipation, in my opinion. He's one of the best, I think, quarterbacks in this draft at throwing contested catch balls. He had guys in Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, a 6'7" giant out there, who you've had two guys who were at their best, maybe going up and trying to go get balls in contested catch situations. And he did a really good job to me of making sure when he threw those balls that he put them in the right place. We've seen this at times, haven't we, with DK Metcalf through the years, where DK is a guy that gets knocked for not being more of a Calvin Johnson, like go up and get it guy who can sky up to the top of the sky and pick it out of there. And, the corners just can't do anything about it. But you need the quarterback who puts those kind of throws into the spot to make that happen too. And there's been a lot of times with DK over the past couple of years where those throws are nowhere in the neighborhood for him to go up in time and make those kind of leaps to bring those kind of passes down. With Jordan, he understands how to throw those kind of balls into those players and put it on the right spot with the right timing to it to where he doesn't give those corners a chance. And you can see that a lot of times there with that Johnny Wilson kid at 6'7" going up against 6-foot corners where he's just able to go up and grab it at a certain spot where Jordan's put it, and they've got no chance. Great on back shoulder throws as well, so his reactions in the moment are just on point. He has an understanding how to play the position. I think he's ready to go if you need him to start some games. He could start for you. I don't think this may be a quarterback of the future, but a great, competent backup for a 3 or 4 year period on a rookie deal, cheap. Nothing to shake a stick at. All right. Next guy up is we're going to look at another somewhat local guy here and another safety prospect, and this is going to be Keaton Oladipo out of Oregon State. 6'1" kid, didn't blow up the numbers with the 4.58, 159, 10-yard split. 36-inch vertical leap, 9.9 broad. Nothing major there. Okay, decent scores there, but just good to solid all-around game again. Looking for those defenders that can do a variety of different things between coverage, tackling, coming up and playing like a linebacker, able to even drop back and play like a corner at times if you need him to do that. This guy's missing maybe as far as just the one thing he's missing is just ball skills, but he's got a do-it-all kind of skill set that he brings. To me, he is a purified cover Fangio, Vic Fangio, cover 2 shell kind of cat, and then you can have him do free safety stuff, strong safety stuff purely. You want him to drop back 40 yards down the field, he can do that, and he can do it well. You want to bring him up around the line of scrimmage and be a menace down there, you can do that. You want him to penetrate in the backfield and try to get some TFLs and bring him on the blitz. He's got a good, rugged kind of build and abilities that he brings that stands out at the safety position to me from some of the guys in this class. And another guy that I think isn't being talked a lot about in this draft that could end up dipping down and you find maybe third, fourth round. But a guy that I think just brings a skill set that's really being sought after in this sport and is a lot harder to find than you might think, as far as just, okay, you want a safety who can do both skill sets. You just got to go out there and find that. Yes, most of these guys still were in that age where this is still what he's got to go do first and foremost. He can kind of do this other thing, but this guy can do both of those two things. Really, really love what he brings. I think he moves really well too, very athletic. Another guy where the testing numbers maybe don't quite add up to how smooth and good he moves in space. Does a great job as well from the safety position of attacking the route. So he finds he's got that natural ability to feel the top of the stem of the route when the break's coming, and then how to get on that in that right timing to where he can then disrupt the catch. Might not go up and make the catch or try to pick it off on the other side of it, but he'll go up and disrupt the catch. He'll make it impossible for the receiver to bring it in at the very least. All right, let's look at the next guy. Let's go back over to the wide receiver standpoint of things. And the next guy we're going to take a look at here is going to be Luke McCaffrey. I believe this is my final wide receiver on the board. I got 3 wide receivers because this is the deepest position in this draft. And so to me, I think it's the one that has the highest likelihood of having guys that do end up falling and dipping in the draft, that you end up being able to get with great value potentially later on. Now, Luke is, of course, the brother of Christian McCaffrey, son of Ed McCaffrey. And when you watch him on tape, he actually is more like his father than he is like his brother. His brother is 6 feet tall and very, very shifty as a running back. Great open field speed. I was kind of surprised to see Luke test out at 4.46 in the 1.52 10-yard split that he posted, because I didn't think you exactly saw that on tape. Those are kind of higher testing numbers than I thought he actually showed on film. He was a guy that started out his career as a quarterback, so a little bit late to getting back to the receiver position a bit, which is maybe why he's wasn't able as maybe to raise his stock as high as others in this draft, which is why maybe a little bit of having to then go from quarterbacking. I think he was at Nebraska, I forget where he was at. He was at somewhere there, and then he made his Wisconsin, and then had to move on then to Rice as the wide receiver. But a guy that is going to be able to play on the outside, as proved by that 4.46, 1.52, the explosive scores that he posted, everything really good there. The short shuttle at 4.02, which is a very good score too to go along with that. He can provide everything you need from the position as far as go bring him into the slot, have him run some fly sweep stuff. He's got a little bit of ability to shake some guys in the open field at times. He's not his brother. He's not in that camp as far as that. Like, if you want to go and look at what he is and who he is, go back and watch Ed McCaffrey highlights. He's a little bit more upright in what he does, like Ed was. He's going to make the tough catch like his dad does. The thing with going back and watching Ed, if you do, or just remembering as I do from his time there with the Broncos, was he was a guy that he'd get hammered and he's still going to make the catch. He's going to lay there's no alligator arms in this family. They're going to reach out there and take the blow if they got to take the blow. And he's just like his dad in that respect when he goes to make the catch. I do think he's going to probably have to play a little more Z receiver than X receiver at the next level, meaning I think he'll have a little bit more difficulty with press at the line of scrimmage versus the Z that gives you a little bit of a yard back, but still can play on the outside. And he's still coming along, I think, as a route runner, because there's a bit of a late transition, to the receiving position over the past couple of years. But these are the reasons he's going to maybe dip a little bit in this, is because of a little bit of that roughness there around the edges. Still has a really good understanding of how to play the position, though, having that father's background and playing the position. 19 receiving touchdowns the past 2 years. I think that he can, at the very least, start somewhere in this league out of the slot with even a bit of a higher upside potential to him beyond that as we look down the line. Next guy we're going to look at is the other guy that's being talked about on a lot of boards as a sleeper guy, and maybe he's starting to finally raise out of the place of being just a pure sleeper at this point, and that's Mike Sainristil. Mike Sainristil is a kid out of Michigan who might have been Michigan's best defensive player last year. Let's just call that for what it is. Might have been their best defensive player last year. And that's at 5'9", 182 pounds and almost 31-inch long arms in the slot. But you say that because he was just so good all around as a player. In this defense, of course, that you're having him play, you're asking him to do everything. The slot in this defense is not a guy that's going to is not a guy that's just going to simply be asked to do typical traditional slot things. He's got to come up and play like a Sam linebacker. Sam linebacker is that guy that's got to be sometimes down there on the line of scrimmage, down there, sometimes near that tight end on that side of the field, if that's where it's going to be, and have to kind of take on blocks, have to throw blocks off, get in there and make the tackle, have his gap integrity maintained. And that requires a guy that's got that ruggedness to him, that's got that just physicality and got that I don't care, I'm going to stick my nose in there and get it done. And Mike does that. He'll play at his size like a little undersized linebacker. And he'll get in there and he'll root you out from a tackler standpoint. He'll cut you down at the ankles and he doesn't care. He'll come in there like a missile and just, in the run game and just will make it happen. He's got an ability to get back there as far as for tackles for loss. Really outstanding, though, in coverage. I think that's as much as where anything with him he stands out. He's a great wrap-up tackler, but when he was in coverage, he had ball skills. He was jumping routes. A multitude of interceptions this past year playing in this defense. He'd come into the defense and from day one know exactly what his job is. And when you're talking about this guy, to me, you're talking about a guy who's got potential to be a top 5 slot cornerback in this league. And slot is becoming a starting position now. It's becoming on some defenses, it's being run anywhere from 60 to 70% of the time. And that number is only trending upwards, not down. So they're becoming starters now, de facto. And the fact he has the fluidity within the scheme, the fact that he was that best defensive player probably for Michigan, or at least the second best defensive player for Michigan this past year, I think he's going to translate to this league. May eventually even be able to find a kind of approach like Quandre Diggs did, where he comes in the league initially as a slot and eventually goes out and becomes a safety when it's all said and done. But he brings everything you could want to the table from the skill set. What he would finally allow you to also do if you go get Mike is you move him into the slot, meaning now you move Devin Witherspoon to the outside full-time and Tariq Woolen to the other outside full-time. I think that there's got to be a little bit of a slight itch within Mike Macdonald when it comes to this defense in trying to find those 2 outside corners that can lock things down in man coverage on the outside to then allow him to get as dynamic as he wants to get up front with stacked fronts, with the blitz game, all of that. And the way you could do that a little bit to add on top of now removing Witherspoon from having to play into that slot and being able to stick him now just purely to the outside is then you've also created a situation there in the slot with Mike where you also have now an outstanding cover guy in there that the quarterback can't just look for the weak link to pick on in coverage now. I've got a stack front. I've got a blitz. Let me attack the slot because I don't want to hit those outside cover guys who I know are going to have their guys locked down and might pick the ball off if I throw it their way. Let me get to the slot. Mike's in the slot. He might just as likely be there to pick it off as those guys on the outside. And so you would really kind of lock in your corner position and your situation there. And that's a draw again, I think, to Mike, because though he ran so much zone coverage last year, though they ran a lot of stack fronts, they didn't blitz necessarily a tremendous amount. He still does come from that, Ryan background, the Wink Martindale background, where there is always going to be a slight desire there to dial it up. Maybe not bring the house, but, bring some guys down there and make it at least appear that that's going to be the case. Mike, really fun player, though. 40-inch vert, 10-11 broad. Absolutely as twitchy as they come, as sudden as they come. He is God made for the slot, so to speak. Just he would fit right in there perfectly, and you're going to have a hard time getting open on this guy, I'll tell you that. Next guy up is another cornerback. This guy more of an outside corner, in my opinion. And that's going to be Renardo Green. A lot of very good defensive players out there on this Florida State defense this past year. Really legitimately good prospects. Another quick twitch, explosive guy here at 6 foot, 186 pounds. Ran a 4.49, 1.53, 10-yard split, 37.5-inch vert, almost 11-inch broad. So very, 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 very explosive. Absolutely can give you that man coverage ability back there on the ball. You just put him up there in press coverage, and you let him line up on a guy and stay in the hip pocket, and he can stay there step for step. He's also, to me, really physical. You do want him a little bit more in man than you want him in zone, but again, if the draw is to come back and look for an outside guy to play more man coverage situations and find a corner maybe a little bit deeper into this draft, I don't know exactly where he's going to go because he does have really good tape, and his analytic testings are good too. All that stuff really matches out. But he does have a little bit of grabbiness that he can get into him at times, but that's sometimes the nature of the beast at the college level when you're going to play so much press man coverage up at the line of scrimmage like he did. But you want to sit him up at the press man, put Devin Witherspoon on the other side, or have Woolen on the other spine, kick Witherspoon in the slot at that point. This might give you that kind of guy that could, again, kind of acclimate the defense to giving you those times and situations where on the outside you're running man and everything else on the inside and everything on the back end with the safeties is in a state of fluctuation and unpredictability for the quarterback. And then for Macdonald, he's got this stuff kind of locked in where it's going to be, and then he just revolves this around and spins this out into different iterations, and you just cause constant confusion, and you make the quarterback feel like he just can't throw to the outside guys because those lockdown guys are on the outside, and you can't trust that there's going to be that there's going to be true separation there on the route. You get a lot of times where those quarterbacks won't even look on those plays at that time. But I like this guy a lot. He moves like an NFL corner. I think he would fit. We do need to bring some more man guys in here, man coverage guys in here, I think, to a degree. Yes, zone coverage can work too. I think Mike can run between either coverage style. But I do think we need a little bit more of the man guys at times too within this. Let's go over to the offensive line. And quite frankly, I've been finding it a little bit underwhelming going through some of the middle tier or third tier offensive linemen in this draft. I'm looking for diamonds in the rough, and there's a little bit more rough than there is diamonds. And I'm carving through the grounds, but it's just not really there right now. So this is one of the guys that is there. He may have risen himself up on the board as he was probably your workout warrior for the offensive lineman at the combine, 4.94 40, which is fast for them, 1.69 10-yard split, which is quick for them. The 3-cone, the shuttle, I think those were the best times near the best times at the combine this past year. 6'4", 303, 31.5-inch arms, so a little bit shorter arms. He did play all 5 positions first and foremost with Wisconsin. So versatility, yes, that's what you're getting with this guy. Flexibility, yeah, that's what you're getting first and foremost. I don't think with his arm length he would be able to hold up very much out there on either left or right tackle. He is, I think, going to be an interior offensive lineman. But the place to think about when it comes to offensive linemen now is we think of linemen so much in a traditional sense here in Seattle because we've dealt with linemen for the most part here in a traditional sense for so long. I'm lined up opposite you. I'm going to get the ball hiked. I'm going right into the man. You're my defender. I'm going into you are who I'm going to block. A lot of what the new blocking scheme is going to be based upon, though, now is, and this is what we thought we were getting the last 2 years, but we didn't really get it because they didn't have the interior offensive linemen that could do it. And so you couldn't really pull this off as much to run this as purely. We kind of fit more to the old schemes than anything else. Well, now what you're going to do is I've got you to block heads up here by appearances pre-snap, but post-snap, I'm going down to your defensive tackle partner over here. I'm going to go hit his shoulder on the side. I'm not taking him heads up. I'm going to be attacking him right here on his shoulder. And my job's just to be, I'm not even pushing him. I'm not driving him back. I'm pushing him and using his forward momentum post-snap against him. I'm going to pull back across the screen and hit a wham block on a defensive end who we leave unblocked off the snap because the tackle's going down to climb down to the second level. Or I'm going to ignore you and dip around you and get right to the linebacker. Or I'll double up initially on a combo block where there's 2 of us blocking that initial guy instead of it being a one-on-one that you might traditionally have. And then I'm going to peel to the second level and go get that linebacker. So the need to have a guy that's going to root up, take on that big 330-pound nose tackle, and send him backwards is not as much of a necessity. The lack of arm length, which might have stood out for a guy like Tanner, where you go, man, I can only put him at center because he just doesn't have the arm length at guard or to do that. We know he doesn't have it at tackle probably, but he won't have it at guard either. But yes, you can do this now because there's not as much of the blocking nature built upon just one-on-one whooping your man up at the line of scrimmage. So much of it is that mobile-based, movement-based requirements, which this guy checks those boxes for. He moves very, very well in space, not just only moving as far as being quick and able to move in space, but also moving under control in space. And then the final point of completing the play, because you might have a guy that can get there quick and is under control and moving smoothly, but then when he can't land the block for his life, he's whiffing the block here, whiffing the block there, this guy gets down the second level and actually does land his block when he's asked to do it. He can do the combo block and slide off with pristine timing to get down to the second level, to climb to that linebacker and hit him. And it's just, he's got that good understanding of how to do it. So he fits to a couple different positions. He gives you a lot of ability, at the very least, of a solid backup across the board on the interior of the offensive line. I think he gives you starting guard ability when we come to long-term, maybe even your center long-term as far as him battling it out there with Oluwatimi. But his movement skills for a spread-based offense, I think, would be a real pure fit. And that's what you're going to need in the spread-based system. It's not the requirement of big linemen that go after it and then just absolutely are, big, just refrigerators that are built, I'm bigger than you so I can move you because you're smaller. Mass moves mass, like Coach Carroll used to say. It's not that as much anymore. It's moving away from that. Think more like the Denver Broncos in the mid-90s, when they brought on their inside zone blocking scheme and they started to go, you know what, rather than looking for 325-pound offensive linemen or 300-pound offensive linemen, let's get a lot of sub-300-pound guys. Let's get a lot of 290-pound guys, 285-pound guys that can move in space. And what did they do with that? On the back of that blocking scheme, of course, Terrell Owens had a couple of the better seasons we've ever seen from a running back because those guys were just, gnarly. Can't cut like you used to, which was a big part of that old scheme, but still, that's what you're going to be looking to do here with this new scheme. It's about getting guys moving in space. Next guy we're going to take a look at here is going to be a tight end, a guy that I've really, really liked the second I turned on the film with him, and that's going to be Tip Ryman. 6'5", 271, almost 33-inch long arms. Check. Checks all the boxes of what you'd like from a traditional inline tight end size standpoint. Then he goes out and runs a 4.64, a 1.55 10-yard split, which for a guy at 271 pounds, a 1.55 10-yard split. We've got wide receivers in this draft rocking 190 pounds that can't get that quick. Keep that in mind. Good vert, okay vert, fine broad jump, 3 cones okay as far as that goes too. So, those are okay, fine numbers. Stands out a little bit here when you look at him as he was underutilized out there at Illinois. They were more of a run-heavy scheme. He did that part of things. He was a very good run blocker. He had no issues, with getting up there and getting it done. He's got nice feet. He gets in there. He can move in space and land his block if you need to move around. He's comfortable doing that. So he first and foremost is a skill set to me. He brings outstanding blocking, but he also has a lot of upside to me as a pass catcher as well. He was only targeted 24 times last year, but he caught 19 of those balls. So when you throw it to him, he makes the catch. I think he's definitely at his best blocking, but I think there's some upside to him there as a pass catcher where it's just not his fault that maybe necessarily the quarterback play wasn't the best and the offense wasn't really trying to feature pass catchers at all. I mean, who's the Illinois wide receiver that you're aware of in this draft? Who's even being talked about as being draftable, right? And that's, is that a lack of talent? Maybe it's just lack of talent, but it's also a lack of, you just don't feature that position as much. So wasn't asked to do it. They also had an H-back guy there that they like to throw the ball to a lot, which also removes some of his attempted targets. But when you watched him on tape, he's getting open sitting down in the zone. He's making those contested catches that you need from the tight end after you're sitting in zone and you're taking the immediate contact after the catch. And he's holding on, bringing it in, and still completing it through. So a guy that I think may dip in his draft a little, also may vault a little bit. He might become a little bit like I've called him the little bit of the Luke Musgrave of this draft, whereas Luke was more of the pass catching guy that wasn't the best of blockers, but gave you this insane upside as far as the pass catcher goes. Maybe he gives you kind of the really great upside as the blocker, but then he actually can also bring some of that pass catching ability. It's just not been utilized that much. And that's one of the reasons I think he's become a bit of a sleeper in this draft. His testing numbers might vault him, but he doesn't necessarily have that production that typically for these tight ends allows them to be drafted high. And if you're getting him later on, as I know the Hawks did bring back 2 tight ends this past year, you have Fant really essentially on a 1-year deal. You could easily get out from under that deal and after a season. Pharaoh Brown is also on a 1-year deal. I know Fant signed a 2-year deal, but you can get out after one season very, very easily. So tight end is a little bit of a potential need here. And if you get one guy that dips down the draft, maybe a guy that they do look to jump on. Final guy on my list has been a guy that went from being a guy looked at as maybe acclaimed as a first-round guy, but then as we've gone through the process here, and especially after his pro day, now finds himself maybe dipping down a little bit in this draft, at least going from first round to maybe more into the depths of the second round, maybe even third round at this point. But this is a guy that from day one of watching his skill set, I've liked. Another guy like some of the safeties I've looked at as far as these sleeper lists go that truly give you the complete skill set. If you look at his snap counts, he had almost equal snap counts from free to strong safety, down into the slot, even some linebacker snaps. So he was used in college all over the place in what they wanted him to be able to do and perform, and he performed it admirably. The Seahawks are looking for their Kyle Hamilton of this draft. This may be as outside maybe James Williams, or maybe this even beyond James Williams, is the guy that gives you a little bit of the closest iteration to that. To give the numbers a little bit here between the two, you've got Kyle Hamilton's testing numbers above Newbin here on my screen right now. You can see that they had exactly the same 40 testing time of 4.59. You have Hamilton, who's definitely more explosive across the board. 1.58 10-yard split versus Newbin at 1.65. The vertical leap, 38 inches. Newbin only performed 31.5 inches. You have a 10-foot broad jump from Newbin, whereas Hamilton almost pulled off an 11-foot broad jump. The shuttle, 4.32 for Hamilton, 4.51 for Newbin, and 6.9 cone versus 7.23 cone for Newbin. So the thing to consider with this, of course, is that Hamilton was looked at with those testing scores as being not necessarily up to snuff himself. You know, those were going to be testing scores that kind of dinged him a little bit. They didn't turn out to really do it because the Ravens are good at drafting and they're not just going to rely on testing numbers. Much needs to be the same here when you consider Mr. Newbin. In that, yes, testing numbers need to hold a certain amount of sway, but you also don't let them override what you see on the film. And what you see in this guy is great instincts in coverage, an ability to play man and or play zone, to play a variety of different positions, to be comfortable in those roles and positions, not necessarily to be forced into a position that they can't do, but actually do it and perform and pull off the task. And when you watch Newbin on tape, that's exactly what he does. I think he was the highest graded or one of the highest graded players by PFF from the safety position this past year. And there's for good reason, because he's assignment correct and he's on it. As a run game defender, he comes downhill, outstanding tackler. And this guy brings some hitting ability as well. He will lay the pop on you. So brings everything to play, I think, that you can ask for. Picture perfect tackling ability. Yes, I understand that the testing numbers are not fantastic with this guy, but I still do believe that he brings quite a bit to the table that gets me very interested in him as a safety to bring in here. And a guy that, you know, may not be outstanding as far as some of the pure physical skill set stuff goes, but just as a pure football player, turn on the tape, he's outstanding in that respect of things. So those are my sleepers in this draft. We've got a variety of these guys, but Darius Robinson, Malik Washington, Javon Baker, Darian Taylor Demerson, Darius Musau, James Williams, Germaine Burton, Jordan Travis Catan, Oladipo, Luke McCaffrey, Mike Sainristil, Renardo Green, Tanner Bortolini, Tip Ryman, and Tyler Newbin. We'll see if the Hawks look to target one of these guys, but I was trying to pick out guys that I thought would be really good fits. And I do think that these guys definitely potentially have that in their bag. I appreciate you guys watching today. Please do hit that like button if you could for me. I would really appreciate it. Thank you to all the new subscribers on the channel as we do continue to grow through this off season. We'll continue our coverage here on throughout the week. As far as we've got a show tomorrow, and I think we'll be going again back on Wednesday. So you'll be getting a lot of the Hawks Nest this week, and then Thursday, because me and Brendan are going to be doing the continuing breakdowns of positions here on both of our channels on our side of it. So do keep an eye out for that. I also want to say I'm really excited to start to do not a new channel, but we're going to be just kind of changing a little bit of a second channel I have into a different thing as far as we're going forward. So one of the more highly requested things that I get here from the live stream shows is from folks who would like to have a little bit more of some cuts clipped up say that right, clipped up from the live streams, more into smaller bits and segments, more palpable, if you will, so they don't have to kind of hunt and peck for given subjects. And it's I've been hesitant to do this on the main channel because it could kind of just end up overwhelming any of the other content I do on the channel with just that, where other stuff gets lost. So we're going to do just kind of a clips channel here for the Hawks Nest. And so we're going to start putting that together. And so if you are not already, do get subscribed out to the Seahawks Scouting channel. I'll be changing the name of it, but that's going to be the channel. It's one of my secondary channels I've got because that's where we're going to be flowing it through. And the plan is for this next upcoming year to really be driving it's going to be kind of just a place where we're going to shoot all the content out. It ain't going to be fancy. It ain't going to be any graphics or anything like that, but it will be a place that I know with the folks that have requested doing some more of those kind of clips and cuts too, it'll give you a place that you can kind of now more kind of grab through different sections of things that you might want to on that. So that's coming soon as well. And that just wanted to let you guys know. Kevin Lowe, nice. Thank you for the $10 donation. Sorry I'm a little late on acknowledging your dono, but appreciate it nonetheless. I hope you're having a great night and thank you for your support. He says, because of the new kickoff rules, we need a new true kick returner. Do you see someone in the 6th or 7th round? Good question. And yes, this would appear to be something that you want to kind of try to address with now at this point. A guy I think that might be interesting. So I think that there's two guys that I'll go to on this that could stand out as those kind of guys. First would be Isaac Guerrero. This draft is killer for names, I'll tell you that, man. There's some tongue twisters. Isaac Guerrero, who is a really fast running back, who's got some very good acceleration, who, if he gets a hole in the kick return game to me, Kevin, he's that guy that, bye-bye, see ya. Now, you might have to go a little bit higher in the draft to get him because of some of the recent success of guys in recent years that have been like him, like a Devin Achane in recent years has been a little bit, these guys that you may not give them 20, 25 carries over the course of a game, but you give them 7 or 8 and they'll do a lot with it. Or you give them 10 touches over the course of the game between the kick return game and they can do something with it. He's got really good open field change of direction, which when I think about these kickoff rules, it's just about a guy that's not only fast, but he can take the kickoff, make that one move, change to the direction that he gets upfield and goes. A Percy Harvin type guy is what you're kind of looking for in the type of guy who can do it. A guy maybe a little bit of running back ability who can fight through kind of some of those arm tackles and still get through it. You have to really bring him down to get him down. This would be one guy. The other guy that I would take a look at is Tyron Tracy Jr. out of Purdue. He is a guy went 4.48 on his 40, 1.5, 3.10 yard split. I believe he's got a little bit of the kick return background already. He's got an ability to really do that set cut within 2 or 3 steps, kind of set up his vision to where he wants to go, set up the blockers, and then work off his vision there. And that's, again, you're going to have to kind of not only be that quick, but those quick reactions. And he's got the change of direction as well. But I liked him as a future kick returner guy for that kind of ability and skill set he brings. Him being more of a guy who's got to kind of find that role because it's not as obvious that he's going to necessarily have a real featured place when it comes to being a number 1, number 2 running back. But guys that could be number 3, number 4s, and then also can be really nice kick returners / maybe even good punt returners for you. I could see it with both of those two guys. And with Tracy, I think you're probably looking at Isaac Guerrero going in the 4th round, and I think with Tracy, he goes in the 5th round. I don't see a 6th or 7th round guy. Yeah, I just don't really see. Unfortunately, I've not really loved these rounds. Maybe Michael Wiley. I've got him out of Arizona in the 7th, but or Keelan Robinson. That would be a 6th or 7th round guy. He's really interesting, Kevin, because here's the guy that got stacked on the depth chart first behind Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson last year, so he wasn't getting any touches with that. And then this past year, stuck behind Brooks on the depth chart. He is really fast. So Wiley or Keelan Robinson in the 7th would be 2 really interesting guys as well. But there's guys in the 7th that are just missing the speed you'd be looking for, I think. Like Dylan Johnson, Jace McClellan, Dejon Edwards. I don't even think any of these guys are going to have enough get up and go to be the kick returner for you. They're not, I'm not going to say they're plodding, but you want that acceleration from that spot. But go Hawks, Kevin. I appreciate you for that donation. I hope you're having a great night, man. It's good to see you in the house, his house. Brian, Megan, hello. Good to see you. Space, what's up? Something Fishy says, as an Aussie, I have to say, I love how in-depth the draft prospects are looked at and how the NFL is all year round. It's unbelievable, and I love it. I'm with it too, my man. I am with it too. I'll tell you what. Whoa. Got a little bit of camera problems here. Camera's a little bit odd today. Got a little bit of a new table set up here. I'm the same way on this. It's something that I love, man. The more I get into the depths of the NFL, the more that it just opens up for me something fishy as far as the depth of the sport goes. I think there's some sports that you can struggled to get into that kind of depth, and that they are just kind of what they are. They're what you see is what you get. A guy is able to score or not. He's able to hit the ball or he doesn't. Whereas with football, there's a lot of things that go into every decision and every tactical choice, and that goes up from the personnel on down the line. And the thing that stands out, I think, too, with football on this Fishy is, while you can't build a team in free agency to take yourself over the top, there's been teams that have made great free agent signings that have been key free agent signings to help them go get a Super Bowl. Whereas you can't hope to have a whole draft go out there and take you to a Super Bowl in the back of a draft. We have seen drafts take teams and turn them around in ways that have been fantastic and that have elevated them in a fashion that nobody saw coming, even to our Seahawks 2 years ago when we made that Russell Wilson trade. We turned around on the back of that and had just really an amazing draft, one of the best in Seahawks history, that took a team that a lot of people thought would be 2-3 wins and got to the playoffs by that early young production. So it's a sport that really, offers the potential of that promise while also being able to still deliver that promise. Where if you go get a guy in baseball in the offseason, it's like the free agents tend to be overpaid old guys, or if you're going to draft a guy in baseball, you got to wait 5 years for them to come back around and be ready to be at the pro level. Basketball, kind of the same way. You're getting guys at 19 that are, I played 1 year in college. Part of why I love this sport, Fishy, is just that nature of things. You mad, bro? I wouldn't turn down either of the two Miami safeties. They're both really nice. Misfit, that's right. Hamilton did have a pretty crazy broad jump. Why you mad, bro? Says I'd rather have Joe Milton than Jordan Travis. I'm totally okay with Milton, just as long as it's a little bit later on with him. And one says Oladipo would be a steal. I love me some Oladipo, man. Another guy just quick and easy to see on tape. Some guys are hard. You got to take a little bit of time to kind of really, really go through the tape before you finally get your full idea of what they are. But he's a fun player. Thomas says Jared Strange brought up something. In 2012, Seattle had Jackson and then signed Matt Flynn. Everyone thought Seattle wasn't drafting a quarterback, and then they got Russ. So Seattle could go after a quarterback late rounds. Agreed, Thomas. I think that it's completely in play here. We still don't know. I know that many are anticipating here that the thing that John's going to eventually do is move up in a draft and go get his QB of the future. That seems to be the move that many are on sort of pins and needles waiting to have happen. But to your point, maybe he is just purely going to go back along the old track again. And let me put numbers at the position and then let the cream rise to the top of those numbers. And I don't think that it's misgiving to think that that's a potential here. How many times has he talked about, Thomas, the old Packer model of wanting to draft a quarterback every single year and then not doing it? So I think the man is true to his word on that, and he wants to do it. And this is a year where very well that could be how it goes in the later rounds, at least. I don't think he'll get it early, but definitely as a later round guy or middle round guy for sure. Thomas's Sainristil seems too small, but I have been drafting him because of Mike McDonald. He plays bigger than his size. He does. I think at the slot, too, you can afford to be at that size. It's not necessarily a negative if you're at that size in the slot. And you don't see a lot of times last year at the college level him really getting abused because he's undersized like that. But that's probably also why he probably is a high, his highest point, Thomas, of being drafted is probably the third round, because he is just that slot only kind of cat. Paul Sizia says, trade back all day and all night. Clear the cap, build the offensive line, and get to next year's draft set now. Love it, man. Love it. I tried Misfit. I tried with Mustafa. I didn't mind him. I wasn't wowed by Malik Mustafa, but, he wasn't bad. He's another guy that'll chop down ball carriers at the ankles, man. He'll be brutal with it. There's just some holes in his game. Instincts, awareness, processing over the course of the play has a little bit of latency to it for me. But he has got some exciting spots to him. So Penix is gone, then who would you draft? Oh, I think you're talking to Thomas on that. And something fishy, that could very well, in regards to your question about trading down for draft capital the next year, it was, of course, a situation we were looking at even in some of the mock drafts we ran last week in trying to see about how do you get extra picks for next year. We're all thinking maybe it's to get the selection this year, but maybe there's some of this to try to start to accumulate more draft capital next year for that potential trade up that could occur. Certainly something that's in play if they trade back here, something fishy. That's for sure. Snail says Hicks is better than Newman. Thomas says, what's your opinion of Pratt and Rattler? I think Rattler's the better prospect. I have a 3rd round grade on him. I don't think he's a dynamic athlete, and he comes very close to being I'm not going to say he's a statue. He's not statue, but he's got some statuesque tendencies. How about we put it that way? With that said, he's got some baller throws this year. He absolutely stood tall under the pressure. And, he understands how to play the position. He gives you a guy with a lot of ready-made experience coming in where I don't think you're going to need a lot more development time with him. But the 5 flat 40, the inability to get away from guys in the pocket definitely shows up. And I tell you, there was a lot of that offense, too, that was structured around just quick, fast throws for him at times right after the snap. Pratt's okay. He's like a 4th-round guy, Thomas. He's got a good live arm, a little bit mobility, okay size. Ball really does jump out of his hand, which is impressive for a smaller school guy. Nick says Gorendo would be the perfect for our scheme. Yeah, he'd be nice. It's this new kind of running back, Nick. In the last couple of years that's developed in the NFL, where these guys will test really fast last year like a chain did, and I sort of threw a chain away. I went 180 pounds. Guys like 5, not 100. How's that gonna? What's that gonna do at the pro level? And then he goes out there and he gets his share of carries. And like, my God, he looks like Chris Johnson. And I think these kind of players are starting to pop up a little bit more on the norm, where you just have to. We always think of them through the traditional approach of, do you give this guy 15, 20 picks, or do you 20 touches, or do you give the guy 5, 20, 10, 12 touches and let him roll off that? And I think that these are both kind of guys you can do that with. Misfit says, I'm kind of excited for Travis. Just watching film on him today. He's a really good player. He's really, really interested and he's just understands what he's doing in the position. He's a little bit shorter, but he stands really tall in the pocket. I like how he processes. He makes smart decisions. He's got that escapability to him, hopefully, which will remain even after the injury. But there's just a lot there to kind of take away. Just arm strength is the one thing that really stands out with me with him. He's kind of, to me, like a Brock Purdy to me. It's like you get in a guy like Travis, you could be getting kind of that Brock Purdy skill set. And blue and green zone, Plumlee is still the last QB I got to go look at in the draft. I haven't had a chance to take a look at him. Thomas Cox says, what late round UW or Michigan draft picks will Seattle go after? A lot of the Michigan guys that I've seen so far are going to be higher up on the board than early drafted guys. Zinter, I don't think Frazier would be at center, a guy they'd go after. So I don't think that you're going to see anything as far as on the offensive side of the ball. They're being one of those guys that they look at it from there. As far as defensively goes, I mean, Sainristil, depending on where he falls to, is a possibility. I don't know if I got another guy that stands out to me on that defense, really. For him, because again, most of these guys, Chris Jenkins, he's going to be taken at the top of the draft. Junior Colson, top of the draft. There's not really so far been really a Michigan defender that has jumped out to me that would be a guy in that mold, to be honest with you. Well, maybe Michael Barrett, I guess, because he didn't test well and he might dive down. The linebacker might dive down. As far as for UW and the offense goes, with Grubb, I think that Jack Westover, tight end, certainly makes some sense here as a possible guy. On the offensive side of the ball, I would have said Roger Rosengarten, but he's going higher up in this draft. Washington players kind of have the same thing going on where it's like most of them are pretty much taken up high. So there's really not a guy in play as far as into that realm you're talking about. Not a lot of late round guys in that area, Thomas, for those two teams. I don't think Culp would be really in play for Grubb unless he saw something I wasn't on tape. Well, Yanga, B, did you enjoy the tweet? I did, man. It's perfect. It's a perfect tweet. Very apropos. Misfit says, I think we may see some player for pick trades during the draft this year by Seattle. It's possible. Certainly possible, man. New regime comes in, tends to be your share of flipping and trading and moving and all that stuff. Blue and Green says, Brandon, do you think DK will really get to show his speed in this new offense, Grubb's offense? I do, yeah. It's a spread system, Blue and Green, but it's a unique spread system that has a lot of tenets built within it on the explosive play, on getting deep. And if you just go back and watch the highlight reel of Romo Odunze last year, you'll go, oh, okay. Like, yeah, there's definitely some DK routes here in this tree. Nick says the only people who even suggest it's possible that DK gets traded are fans. There's not one single indication the franchise has ever even entertained the idea. It's true, Nick. It's very true. Boy, do the fans bring it up a lot, though. It does come up quite a bit. Blue and Green, I could see Taylor or Eskridge or Draymond traded in the draft. Maybe something like a big trade up for a quarterback and trade Geno. Who knows with Schneider? Yeah, anything's possible, man. I mean, anything's possible. I don't know if Taylor or Eskridge have much trade value. Draymond gets you a little bit, but you probably have to put a lot of first-round picks into that package to make that happen. Snail says Geno and Sam Howell are far better than Flynn and T-Jack. It's not particularly close. Agreed, Snail. If I got to take, it's not even tough to make that pick, right? Yeah, 100%. Thomas says, just because there's no indication that DK won't be traded, forgot what happened with the Russ trade. Yes, cap-wise, it won't happen, but it's the NFL. It could happen. Yeah, but I mean, with the thing with the Russ thing, Thomas, was you had a whole year out where Russ basically made a trade request. So, like, there were indications of that trade before it occurred. Did Carroll deny the trade that Russell would be traded a week before the trade happened at the Combine? He did. But that's also how the NFL works on all these guys that are potentially on the trade market is they're always going to say no until it's a yes. But there usually is some kind of indicators from the organization, growing tired of these player A's antics, getting overwhelmed by this, trying to get, they'll leak little things so that it softens the impact, I think, which is what's being talked about here. Is that sort of softens the impact for that eventual trade versus blindsiding fans on a fan favorite player. Everybody's going, wait, why would we do this? You know? Blue and green, Brandon, what's your thoughts on Tyke Smith? Well, I have definitely looked at him. I will say that. All right, Tyke Smith out of Georgia, 5'10", 5'10" corner. We got a 5'10" corner, 31 5/8 inch arms, so just enough size. 4'4", 158, 36 inch broad, 10 broad, 36 inch vert. Sorry. He was a slot specialist, and that shouldn't be considered a bad thing for him, in my opinion. He's got spring-loaded twitchiness and a strong frame to give you linebacker vibes when he's screaming off the edge in a blitz, or how he pursues the run from the slot. I think if you stick him in the slot, you let him stay tight in coverage, and he'll produce. I don't think it's going to work that way if you try to have him dropping into much zones as much. I think he just needs to be, which you can have a zone across the board and ask your slot to essentially be more man. I think he takes on pullers really well, and he's able to disengage off blocks and still go find the ball carrier. I think if you're looking for maybe a difference between him and Mike Sainristil was able to avoid these situations, so you didn't see a lot of it happening to him, but this guy's really, from the slot, able, like you'd like a Sam linebacker to do, to take on those second-level guys, disengage off the block, and still go make the play, still go find the ball. His suddenness shows up when he blitzes. Absolutely fantastic blitzer. He's on top of the quarterback in an instant. He does have a burst, but I don't know if he's quite as fast as that 4.46 testing speed goes. Feels more like a 4.55 kind of guy. He gets misdirected, though it is rare, and it's usually on the back and just trying to be aggressive. I think he should be drafted in the league as a slot specialist. I think there is going to be some temptation to move him to free safety. And certainly if you do that, you want to get him into more of the too high, cover two shell kind of look to things. You know, that'd be the way you would want to lean, on that one. So, I have him currently right now in the 4th round, the late 4th round, right on the edge of the 5th round. As far as the current stand goes. So I've got him about a round behind Sainristil, but very fun player, has the physical capability to do the slot. Like I said, the slot thing, like we're seeing with the wide receivers, as slot wide receivers becoming guys that can be drafted in the 1st round. So too now with their value raising and those guys getting harder to cover on the slot, so too is the slot cornerbacks on the other side of it, I think, going to start to see their value raised. Those guys that are only slot specialists, I mean, you know, and he is that, I think that he is that kind of guy, but he's good player, Blue. What's up, Free Truth? How you doing, man? Misfit, I dismissed that chain too. Yeah. That's that thing too, where it's always about, when they do this process, it's every year I do this, Misfit, it's the attempt is on my part, I may be successful or not, but the attempt is to try to get better at it every year in the evaluation process and to learn lessons. It's a big thing I always harp on this channel about organizations and coaching staffs and even players is, learn your lessons. Everybody's going to make their mistakes, but don't make them twice. And when it comes to these kind of running backs, that's been one of the places that's definitely, I'm starting to kind of learn my lesson on with like, hey, the NFL is less about these traditional approaches to the positions and more about the understanding it's a 17-game season, 2 Thursday night games. It's a marathon, not a race. We need a true team to get through this thing, to get these victories stacked, to get ourselves to a Super Bowl. So it's less about that bell cow back or the 1-2 punch. How's the whole backfield in particular? Can we find touches throughout? Can we find specific touches to specific players to put them in a position for success throughout the course of the game, rather than just having to think more traditionally of, we've got our one guy back there, just have him do it all. Rate Jays, everyone wants Garendo. He's going in the 4th or early 5th. To your point on that, right now I have Garendo in the 4th round. So you are correct on that. I agree. Hard to include him too as a sleeper, Rat, right? Because he is kind of he is rising up some boards. Taker, 610, thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate you for that, Taker. Hope you're having a great night, brother. Part 1, Brandon. I like the idea of building up our O-line and letting Hal sit behind Geno for a year, and then we let him take over. Ooh, Taker coming in hot. Let's go. Also, part 2, and thank you for the double dip on the dono with the other $5 donation drop. He says, part 2, if Hal doesn't work out, we're likely in a good position to draft another quarterback. Let's get really good and solid in the trenches. Better quarterback success. Well, good amount of stuff to unpack there. Number 1 on Hal. I really like Hal, and I like him a lot more than the fan base does. And Taker, you know this, as many people that follow this channel understand this about me, in that I really do believe that quarterback success is less about this, how big is his cape, right? How hot are the laser beams that he shoots from his eyes? And more about how is the Justice League assembled around him? How are those supporting parts to help to bring out his success? As great as Mahomes is, Mahomes has had Andy Reid throughout his whole career. He got to sit for a year and learn the sport truly. He's had an offensive line where they've put a true dedication to building it up and making it strong. And this is a place where I divert, Taker, and it sounds like you're with me on this, so you probably divert too a little bit from many of the modern fans' outlook on this. That the quarterback is that superhero that pulls everybody else up, you know? He's flying up and he just lifts everybody and raises everybody with him. And instead I say, no, they lift him is what I like to say. And so when it comes to Hal last year, on the back of a guy who didn't just have mild college success. This wasn't Mitch Trubisky in college at the very same school. I make that comparison for a reason. Trubisky taken top 5, a guy who had 1 year wonder of success at North Carolina before he was taken. Here in Hal, you have a guy with 3 years of great, outstanding production at the college level, a complete skill set that he brings to bear, who in his first year going out there and playing in a dysfunctional organization with a lame duck coach, a coordinator in Bieniemy that I can't figure out if the league wants him to even still be a coach in the league, or they're just trying to he's the problem that won't go away. I don't know what it is. Not the greatest of offensive pieces. Some people want to try to spell to me the tale that Jahan Dotson is somehow a great receiver. Okay. The worst defense in all of football, or at least in the argument of being one of the worst in all of football. A team that gave up at the trade deadline, trading away 2 of their better defenders on a bad defense already. And yet still put up the production he put up. Still had the year he put up. And it's like people don't go back and look at the first year of quarterbacks throughout history in football. It's like because Mahomes had that first year of starting and such success in it, then that becomes the baseline for everybody as far as what to come to expect from quarterbacks in the first year of them playing. And it should not be. It really shouldn't. That's the outlier. That's the anomaly. It's much more often you get the Peyton Manning first season when he threw 29, not 21 interceptions of Hal. That was when Manning threw 29 interceptions. And he did, I'll tell you this, on the back of a whole hell of a lot less of attempts than what Hal had last year. Last year was not Sam Howell failing. Last year was not a representation of how Sam Howell can't play in this league. Last year was an indication that there's something here. Not saying that the kid's going to light the world fire, not saying that this is an MVP waiting to happen, but there's something here. There's a spark of life here, and it shouldn't be denied. And if the team makes that assessment of him being that kind of player that can be that, and they're going to have a whole year to make this assessment, Taker, they're going to have a year of him at practice playing behind Geno. How is he looking? How does he stack up against Geno? You got a nice little metric to go up against to make the, kind of that evaluation of him to really get a determination about where he is and who he is. And so if they get to the end of the year and they make that evaluation, then we can ride on the back of this guy for the next year. That he can start, and we're going to put a hell of a team up in front of him. As much as there are people that scoff at that and go, nah. As much as that's an easy thing to do, 10 years ago, you took this very same path. You took a guy that wasn't taken in the first or second round of the draft. You built a great team up ahead of him, and you got to a Super Bowl. And was that a majestic, legendary team? Yeah, sure it was. But there have been other teams that have taken this approach too with the quarterback on that cheap rookie deal in order to maximize that time to get you there. And next year could be that time. And the team is sitting in a hell of a spot, Taker 610, to hit that ignition switch next season if that's what they want to do. If that is their intent. And if you're only paying your quarterback $1 million, I'll tell you, that's a hell of a team you can build around him at that point. Hell of a team you can build around him. But to your other donation, your other point about building the trenches, again with me too, we're aligned on this. I started out this offseason and where I wanted to begin, the place that I wanted to make the onus was building up the interior of the offensive line. That didn't mean going out and spending necessarily $20 million on Robert Hunt. That meant putting the investment in it. And I fully expected that to mainly be within this draft. The hard work in a lot of respects I've said is, I think, done as long as Abraham Lucas's leg holds up. You just got to get the guards in the center position fully figured out in the long term. And you've even got a couple guys dancing right now that may be two of those guys to fit into that when we talk about this in Oluwatimi and Bradford, but we just need more there done. It needs to be a point of emphasis. Let's turn it into a strength. And if you turn it into a strength, Taker 610, you can let a young quarterback ride behind that line and still find success. And he will develop successfully as well. It's a two-part process. It's we throw him right in the waters and he can start swimming for the jump because we're giving him some floaties. And then that also allows him to develop naturally and organically at the quarterback position instead of being under duress and developing bad habits and seeing ghosts. So I'm with you on your approach, Taker. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Seahawks were to make that determination moving into next year. It's not that I think that they're counting on that approach, but it could if Hal goes out there and gets into a stable environment like you got here in Seattle with the upgrade in talent that he has around him here. Who knows how he'll look in that environment? I'll tell you this, that the kid's got a great track record and he had his best success in his career in his sophomore year, the year he was playing in a spread system, which is just the kind of the final part of this Taker 610 is he's going back to the spread system where he was at his best in college. At his absolute best, where he looked like he was going to be a top 5 pick in the next year's draft on the back of his production in that offense. Thank you, though, Taker, for all your donations. I really do appreciate it. Nagasa says DK has 2 years left on his contract and he will ask for $30 million a year. If somebody would give a top 15 runner, I would accept it and draft a cheap rookie. It is a really good wide receiver draft. It is indeed. Very true. Still don't want to trade DK though. Nick says DK is top 10. Stats don't tell the whole story. He's most willing and best run blocking wide receiver. There isn't a team that you play that doesn't double team him with over the top help. He takes the number 1 defensive back. I'm with you, Nick. I think his value is great. I like the receivers in this draft. I do, but you know what you have in DK, and I'm still a young player, still not an older guy. And no matter what he may look to be asking on his next contract, I think he is going to be worth it. Thomas, true. I'm saying if DK is asking for the highest player in the NFL like Jefferson, then Schneider might be looking to move on, especially if he has a great year under Grubb's scheme. That certainly is something that if we get to that place of it being that, but then we're talking less about $30 million at that point, and you're talking more like $35, $40 million being the asking price next year at the top of the market. Because once Jefferson signs his contract, that's where that's going to push that marker too. If we're going to make the prediction on DK requesting that amount of money, I think we've got to base it upon a little bit of the original negotiations that came after his rookie contract. Because if DK came off of his rookie deal, did he ask for all the money at that time? Did he press negotiations in a way that was labored and came down to the last minute? Was there threats of trading him? No. None of that stuff happened last time DK was up for his contract, was it? They got the deal done. And not only did they get the deal done, at a time where DK's buddy, A.J. Brown, who had similar production to him, was being shipped to the Eagles and signing a $25 million a year deal, DK Metcalf was signing a $23.5 million deal. So did he take a discount? Maybe not a huge discount, but did he push for the most money that he possibly could grab in that situation? No, he did not. So if we're making what's the marker of what we can take for the future of that at that point based on the past, doesn't seem like just DK is a guy saying, I need the respect to being paid the highest amount of money to feel like you're showing me the love, you know. But it's hard to predict at this point, and still we're at least a year out from these kind of discussions coming into play. Mr. Dog Hawksnest, do you play fantasy football? I did this past year. It's hard for me to get much playing in Mr. Dog because so much of the concentration has to go to the channel into the year, you know. So I just even when I played this year, I couldn't do as much to really get into the depths of it, I think, as I would have liked because it just not enough hours in the day during the season. Nick, I agree with you. I don't think Odunze or any of the top 3 wide receivers are on the board when we're picking at 16. Zen Lunatic, late to the show, but after your vid about unleashing K9, any late sleeper running backs we might pick up? It's kind of underwhelmed by some of the running backs I've been looking at because we're going to be doing the show tomorrow on running backs, me and Brendan, and it's going to have a lot of a specific onus upon maybe some of the later round backs that you could look at. There's some guys that are okay that to me give you some functional running ability and could be good 4th running backs on the roster. Dylan Lobb, Cody Schrader, Mayan Williams. These are kind of 5th round guys that I think, you know, could kind of give you that just, hey, I can fill in for a game and start for a game and take some carries, but I'm not going to be tremendously dynamic. I'm just going to be kind of a grinder in there with what I bring to the table. You got a guy in Will Shipley, who I think is more of a 5th roundish guy than 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, like some people think. I think he's just not big enough out there. But it could be a really good 3rd down specialist for you into that 5th round range. There's a kid named Rasheen Ali that I think is a 6th round kind of cat. And he's really got he's kind of like beast mode. If you took 25 pounds off Marshawn, you'd get kind of Rasheen Ali. Not quite maybe as fast or quick, not quite as big, but same kind of running style, you know, unique ability to get lateral and get lateral very quick. Keelan Robinson is a big one as well for me on that, because with Keelan, he's stuck on the depth chart. And so you look at him and you go, okay, well, you know, he couldn't unseat Bijan Robinson, who was a top 10 first round pick last year. You go, well, yeah, he couldn't unseat Brooks this past year for Texas, who might be the number 1 back on many people's boards this year. Yeah, understandable. But really fun player, really explosive player, and a guy just hasn't had a lot of touches necessarily over his college career because he has been stacked on the depth chart, but who might give you a little bit of, shades of a Terrell Davis. You know, wasn't Terrell Davis there at Georgia and stuck behind a lot of talented backs like I think Garrison Hurst or something at that time, and you know, having to play fullback, I think, relegated to that before he finally got to the pros. Maybe a similar kind of situation going down there. Thanks for checking out the K9 video. And if you guys haven't, I did just drop in the past week a Kenneth Walker video over here on the channel just recently. As well for members of the channel. Just want to let everybody know on this too. I just dropped the beginning of my draft guide. So if you are a member of the channel right now, please take a look at your community post because I dropped the quarterback section of the draft guide today. I'll be over the next couple of days, just every couple of days, probably dropping the new guide, extra parts of the guide. So running backs will be up next, wide receivers, et cetera, et cetera. But keep an eye on your community post if you are a member of the channel, not only for the member-only shows, but also for the draft guide. And then, of course, I will be dropping the draft guide for everybody probably about a week out from the draft. But this is some early access for those that are members of the channel. Thank you for being members. Appreciate you for that. Snail, thank you for the $2 donation. I really do appreciate you for that. He says, I don't know, B. I like Hal an awful lot. Laughing out loud. He's a fun player, and it's just a guy that I've watched for a lot of years in college prior to him coming out. He was one of those guys. I remember going back. It was Sam Howell and Spencer Rattler to give you guys a perspective on this. You were looking at the previous year, looking ahead, and everybody was telling you on their presumptive draft boards, top 2 quarterbacks in next year's draft, likely to be the 1-2 off next year's draft. It'll be Spencer Rattler and Sam Howell. You're going, oh, let's go take a look at the Sam Howell. And he's throwing moonshots left and right. You're going, geez, he's got an arm on him. And then you see he's got that tough scrambling ability, kind of Tim Tebow-ish like. Just a gutsy. It's going to be an easy quarterback for a lot of fans to root for if he goes out there and plays, because this is a guy that plays absolutely fearless. He doesn't care if you deck him, hit him, break his rib, snap a finger. He's just going to bounce back up and keep coming at you. He's the Rocky of NFL quarterbacks. He's made of iron. But I do love him, man. I think he's going to be potentially a good player for us. I think that's a steal of a trade for the Hawks. I know a lot of people getting, it's a 3rd round, 4th round. It's not, number one, it's not a 3rd round pick. And the thing that you can always tell people that don't like the trade is they keep amping the deal of how much we give up. It's like the equivalent of a 1st round pick, really. Like, what? I've seen some wild ones on that Howell trade where people were like, you gave like a 2nd round pickup, man. Like, no, we did not. No, we did not. We didn't even lose the picks. We fell back some spaces in the draft. That's all we had to give up for the guy. Spaces in the draft. We're getting mad about that? We're crying about that? Come on. But I'm with you, Snail. Thank you for the donation, man. And how's a baller? He's a baller. Randall McDaniel in the house. What's up, Randall? It's good to see you, brother. Says, I keep going back to, if any of the 1st round quarterbacks in this class put up the same numbers as Hal did last year, fans would love the pick. I've been thrown off by myself on this, Randall. The small cost that you gave up in this situation, number one, for a player like this doing what he did last year, what I really found in myself and having discussions in my chat on this with fans that were anti-Hal trade from the jump was, number one, as I was just saying a second ago, Randall, there was this overstating of the draft capital you truly gave up, what the real cost truly was, which is at the highest cost. It's a mid-4th round pick. It depends on the value chart you want to use and how you want to consider it, but anywhere from a mid-4th to a 5th round pick, you basically gave up for the guy for 2 years of cheap club control. But that's the thing that's been wild to me, Randall, is the fact that so many got caught up on that 21 interceptions. And I go, I get that. That is a high amount of interceptions if you have a starting quarterback in this league who's a 5-year veteran, who's been doing it for a few years, and you're like, man, he just can't get the interception thing figured out. But for a 1st-year starter on a bad team, with a lame duck coach, with new ownership just taking over, I thought it was, if anything, to me, it's a good thing more than there's anything really bad to take away from that. And it's going to be fun watching his development here, going to a situation that's the absolutely opposite of what he was dealing with in so many respects out there at Washington. And again, to me, Randall, coming back to that spread-based system that he played in his sophomore year in college, and how good he was in that spread system, throwing for almost 3,600 yards. I mean, he was just very comfortable back there operating this system, and I think it fits him really well. He can make all the throws, and he's even got those shot throws that he can build into his attack that, of course, Grubb likes. So, it's been odd to see the reaction on that one for me too, Randall. I think some of this comes down to, there is, I think, contingent of Hawk fans that just want to see not secondhand parts, not another man's used goods. They want a fresh prospect out of school that will allow them to dream. And if a guy's played somewhere else, there is no dream. They know what he is. There's nothing to fantasize about. But to me, there's plenty there with this guy to think about on the upside side of it, Randall. Thank you, though, man, for the donation. I appreciate you for that, brother. It's great to see you in the house. Nagasa says, Hal had a mid-O line, a pretty good weapons, and a good offensive coordinator, still played very badly. Yeah, I disagree, Nagasa, down the line on that one. Maybe mid-O line, okay. Pretty good weapons. He had Terry McLaurin. People have tried to sell me on Logan Thomas being a great tight end. If he's so great, Nagasa, why are they cutting him this year? Jahan Dotson averaged 10 yards a catch. It was okay. He had okay guys on the outside. He also had the worst defense in all of football that required him to have to score a gazillion points if they were going to win. And that's another part. And again, first year starting, Nagasa, what's the baseline on quarterbacks starting in their first year? Do they tend to go out there and just light it up? Do all quarterbacks that end up being really good quarterbacks just step in their first year and they either sink or swim? And if they sink, then they're going to sink forever and they'll never swim? Or is it more like guys going in the first year and there's some rough waters that they have to navigate through? They learn a lot of hard lessons and then they come back and they improve as you go forward. Especially those guys, Nagasa, that might be like, 22, 23 years old. Yeah, Nagasa, I think it's simplistic to say that the guy got sacked 65 times, that those sacks are all just on him. I'm certainly willing to say that quarterbacks have a lot of sacks you can put on them when you have that high amount, but it's also representative of not good pass protection. Probably too. I'm guessing it's a bit of both coming into that play on that situation. Yeah, Nagasa, he's also a 23-year-old cat, man. Reaching a final conclusion on a guy 23 years old and going, that's a finished product. I know what he is. I guess, and the offensive coordinator, the Bieniemy is a good offensive coordinator, was the other thing that you were saying on there. What's the proof of that? There's been plenty of offensive coordinators that have come through under Andy Reid. He's called the plays throughout that time period, so you don't even call the plays there with it. It's not like Bieniemy came off the job he did last year and there were people banging down his door to even become their offensive coordinator this offseason. So again, like these things that get said, you got to support a little bit more of it just than saying magnanimously. What's the proof of that? These guys have a hard time to get a job for being such a great coordinator. But again, to me, this is the part that gets weird to me with Sam Howell. The people that are anti-Howell and saying, "Well, no, he had this and he had that at Washington and he had this," like you're trying to paint the portrait to me of like he was like somehow he was being put into a position for success with Washington. Like Nagasa, is that the argument you're making? Is that offense with a 23-year-old kid in his first year starting had him set up to be successful in that division? Really? Really? We sure on that one? Thomas says, yes, Sam Howell can be good, but I need to see more than 3,900 yards and 21 receptions. And people saying that he's next Favre or Young. I'm sorry. I'm not saying he's next Favre or Young. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he can be a really good functional quarterback in this offense, and you give him a good supporting cast, he can be a good player within that. That's again, we get back to on that to me, Thomas, of do we need the guy that's superhero quarterback? Favre, Young, superhero kind of quarterbacks. Yes, if you can get your hands on those guys, it's great. Is there a way to go and win a Super Bowl without the need of having a Favre and Young? My opinion, yes. You can still go and win a Super Bowl going down another path. I think that's kind of at the heart of this whole discussion a little bit with the Howell thing. Blue and Green says, everyone hit the like button and help out the Hawks Nest channel. Free takes, 1 second. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Rack up that button. Please do hit that like button, folks. It does help out the channel. I know it's often requested here, but it's a thing that does bring up some great returns. Brian says, Brandon, may have asked you before. Sorry, I looked at running back Blake Watson. I've got, I think 4 running backs left, and I think he is one of them, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on here. Let me look. All right. Oh my God. Too much. Got 53,000 words on this draft. Blake Watson's on my list to take a look at. I got Blake Watson, Jacob Monk, George Holani, Jaden Sheridan, and Kendall Milton are the last 5 running backs I need to look at in this draft. So still on my list to take a look at, and then I'm not looking at any more running backs. That'll be about 35 or something running backs I looked at the draft. So, but I do tend to go take a look at them for sure. Just haven't gotten there quite yet. Grass Daniel says Burrow also sat for most of his rookie year. The top 2 quarterbacks learned a lot from the sideline. Absolutely, you can, Grass. It's something that's gotten lost in the NFL. Is there was always so much of that rush to get these guys on the field, but there's a really good track record with quarterbacks and having some time to sit and the benefits that they can reap from having that opportunity to do that. And especially if you can sit behind a really good quality quarterback. So Burrow's guy did that. Rodgers was the guy that benefited from that. There's been a few of them. Brian says, can we all give the thumbs up to Hawks Nest first installment of his draft guide, dedicated quarterbacks? Outstanding work. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that, man. Promise it'll be a good, I think a good little draft guide. Like I said, I'm at about 53,000 words on this draft on the guide. I'm going to be probably about 75,000 to 80,000 when we're all said and done. So it's going to be a little wordy, but hopefully captures the draft pretty accurately and well at the end of the day. But very kind of you to say, man. Thank you. Ran the Cut, love the K9 video. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. It's a fun one to put together. And boy, I truly do believe K9 is going to be a back that in this league will eventually, one way or another, be running for 1,600 yards a year and get a few of those seasons locked up. It's part of the reason I say if we can just address that offensive line, it's the benefits it brings a young quarterback. It's the benefits it brings a receiving core to have enough time to get out into their routes. And it's a benefit to the running backs. And absolutely now creating those holes that is necessary for all backs if they're going to have that kind of success of a 1,600 yard type season. And yeah, Thomas, I'm definitely not saying, and maybe somebody's saying it here in the chat, but I'm definitely would not try to put Sam Howell comps to Brett Favre. Like I wouldn't go into that direction of it for sure. I do think though that his story just isn't totally, said. Randall, thank you for the $2 donation. I appreciate that. And Randall says, is anyone else still buying draft mags? 35 years in a row. Woo, Randall. They're still doing them, huh? I can't even find the magazine shelves in the grocery stores anymore. I just don't know if I'm not maybe going down the right aisles or there's certain aisles I just don't go down, but you got to order those mags, don't you now, Randall? Got to order them special. Phillips says, I think in 2 years with Hal, people won't worry about drafting a quarterback. My opinion. I love that we can find a quarterback everyone says is trash and rebuild them like Steve Rogers, $1 million man. I like the thought of it too, Philip. It'd be a great story if you could pull it off with him. It's really, it gives us flexibility. If Hal's not nothing, then nothing really lost, and you go get your quarterback into the future. If he can become something, well, my goodness, you're able to get something for nothing, and you got cheap club control for a couple of years to work off that. Nick says, we traded back and got Sam Howell. Seeing all these mock drafts, it looks like this draft falls off quick. Not to mention he is younger than some of the other quarterbacks. Yeah, I think, Nick, you weren't going to get an opportunity with the commensurate value even around a mid-fourth. I don't think you're going to get as good a player as Sam Howell would be in the mid-fourth at the quarterback position. This was the better option, I think, just in the consideration of not even like future quarterback here or quarterback of the future, but just in the position of who's just flat the best quarterback, player A in the middle fourth round or Sam Howell on that side of it. Sam Howell. Stale says, Eric Bieniemy got laughed out of the league after he left Andy Reid's side. He thought throwing 70% of the time with a first-year quarterback and no defense was a good idea. Great points, Snail. Absolutely fantastic points. Brian says, and McLaurin missed a good amount of time injured. Oh, well, see, there you go. And McLaurin, that is the guy in that offense. The running back position was okay. Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson are fine. They're not difference makers for the position. And Jahan Dotson's still finding his way out of Penn State. And Logan Thomas had a good year about 3 years ago, and he had been riding off of the goodwill of that year of 3 years ago for quite a bit of time. And then they had the other guy that was the gadgety slot guy that was another guy that just, didn't do a whole lot for them, Samuel. Another guy that's like people hype up a bit. It's like, for what? Like Curtis Samuel? First year of the Panthers, Samuel had 6 catches for 27 yards. All right, but he's a guy that gets you barely over 500 yards a season, and that's considered a good part of a supporting cast. The guy that's like, oh, that guy's a helping us difference maker. You know, it's like, it's not a lot to work with on that offense. I'm with the assessment of the offensive line being mid, not higher than mid, not better than average, mid. A receiving core below average, especially with McLaurin injured for a decent part of the year, and then a tight end group below average, and a running back room average, and then a defense god awful that, you know. I think Nagasa, being that he dealt with a lot of that stuff along with the worst defense and still performing as he performed, which I'm not saying he lit the league on fire. As I said with this, I don't think Nagasa, if you put any quarterback in that Washington environment last year, just about any quarterback in this sport, veteran, rookie, I don't know who's really finding success on that team last year, or who's going to go out there and really throw for a ton of yards and be awesome. I think everybody's going to have a tough time on that team. Brian E says the best evidence we can win a Super Bowl with an unknown quantity at quarterback was what we did in the 2012-2013 season. That's right. That's right. That's what I always say about this, Brian, is this thing of that we got to get the great quarterback who can do everything. It's like you 10 years ago went down this road. And not only did you go down this road and win a Super Bowl, you went to back-to-back Super Bowls. You know, so it's even in our not just NFL history, but recent history, you can find that track record of success going down this path. So why can't we find it again? Why is it so impossible to believe that lightning can strike in the same place twice, especially when you have the organizational structure at the top in the front office, which is the same that created those conditions in the first place? Thomas says, it's not you who said, I think I heard Vine say it. It just drove me nuts because even said Mahomes is a once in a generation, because even you said Mahomes is a once in a generation. Yeah, definitely would never make that comp. And I don't want to make it try to make my case more sound on this, Thomas. I definitely don't want to make it sound like I'm overstating where I think Hal can go, but I do think he can be a very good quarterback in this league. I think he can develop into potentially being even maybe a top 10 guy in this league. And if you can build the type of team around him that we have set the foundation for right now as it stands, and what we have to set up, I think, into the future, to me, there is some potential there with him sliding into that spot and becoming that guy. It's not meaning I'm counting on it. It's not meaning I'm putting money on it, but it is a, multi-universe reality that I can see coming to fruition. Nick says, who was the last quarterback who wasn't a game changer that won a Super Bowl? Nick Foles. I would say Nick Foles. I think it happened pretty quickly, though, behind that, because I think by the time Peyton Manning got to that final year in Denver and then Brock Osweiler splitting the snaps with him, you were getting a game manager, I think, in that game as well. The one that they won there. And that was in a game where you're going up against the league MVP on the other side of it at the quarterback position in Cam Newton. So you won a game from Denver's standpoint with game managers, while the other team had the MVP quarterback on the other side of it. Just again, a great representation of, none of these in themselves should be taken as this is evidence. But take that all together with the evidence when you look at the recent history in the NFL, you go, okay, there is, as I say with this, there is the road to go down the superhero quarterback and go find the magnanimous guy that can do everything, and he's wonderful and he's Mr. Everything and he'll save the day. That's a road you can go down and find Super Bowl success and go win it. No doubt about it. But that's not the only road, which has always been my only point on this. And it's the point I try to push back on, is just that there are other ways you can go down to find that success. And there is plenty of recent history in the NFL, not just going back 30, 40, 50 years, but recent history you can find where teams have taken this kind of approach and path and have raised that Lombardi trophy. Swedish Shinobi says 30 years of Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers got Green Bay the same amount of Super Bowls as the Ravens got from Trent Dilfer and Joe Flacco. Wow, what a great point. What a great point. 7 MVP awards between Favre and Rodgers. Probably 120,000 yards thrown between the two of them. But you're right. Same amount of won Super Bowls. And then that's where I say I go to the Swedish, and that's a great point. That's another great point of kind of evidence where this shouldn't be in itself enough to sway anybody, but you can take this and throw a Foles in there and throw a Manning and a Brock Osweiler at the end. And there's so many of these like examples to toss out to folks that isn't just merely getting yourself Tom Brady, merely getting yourself Patrick Mahomes, merely getting yourself that Burrow. That it can be done by other ways and other means. Thomas says, yes, those quarterbacks won Super Bowls, but it's easier to have that franchise guy who won the Super Bowls. Kansas City Niners had a super teams that they lost, but how could be that guy? I want to see more in the summer. Russ got to 2 Super Bowls. How many would have Russ won if Russ wasn't a Seahawk now? That's a good question. I mean, if you have Tavares Jackson at the quarterback there for you or Matt Flynn at quarterback for you in 13 or 12, do you get there? That'll be one of those long debated items, I think, in Hawk fandoms on that side of it, and one I don't have a really good answer for myself. And as I say, I will always say that first path that I presented with getting that superhero quarterback, being able to have a landing of a Burrow or a Mahomes or Josh Allen, if you can get your hands on them and there's an advantageous way to make it happen, you jump and you strike when you get the chance to do so. But I think that there's also that place that comes to, Thomas, where, then this is what draws like a Howell trade and what I think why I want to be so creative in our outlook for the position rather than being really rigid and saying we have to go down this one corridor and this is the only way, is that you end up a little bit compromised, I think, at times when you're deciding you have, not you saying this, Thomas, just in general, people saying it, that you get compromised when you say we've got to just go down this one tunnel. We've got to go down this quarterback tunnel to take us to the superhero, in that now you're thinking we got to force this to happen. And now that means more draft capital given up. That means bending over backwards and looking at maybe a prospect who isn't maybe worth all the draft capital, but it's the time to go do it. And you got to go make this move. And everybody's wanting this to happen. So it's got to happen. And to me, you can kind of end up forcing yourself to make a decision that ends up going to that place of need, like the equivalent of need in a draft, versus allowing the process to just kind of unleash itself in the way it's going to guide you and direct you. And like this situation has guided us to kind of Sam Howell because of where you're looking at this draft and how so many quarterbacks are being picked up ahead of you. And there's not really anybody in the depths worthwhile into the middle of the rounds. And, you guys just kind of read the lay of the land on that to be open to being creative about it. And that's what I want from Schneider on this. If they can find the great QB and make the trade next year where they can package some picks to find a guy, then I'm all on board with it. But one thing that stands out to me is I don't know if we're going to be picking up high enough to get that QB. I don't know if there's going to be those teams that are going to be willing to trade for a quarterback John likes to go get that quarterback. And then the thing we also got to face with John when it comes to that proverbial scenario is that Schneider's never traded up in a first round of a draft ever. And so is he even willing to make that kind of deal? He may have it in his mind of that's one of my no-go areas on draft day. I will not give up future first round picks just to move up in one particular draft. Mark says, well, folks, I'm in too much pain. Packing up my friend's stuff and moving. We'll still listen. Have a good night. Have a good night, Mark. Appreciate you, man. You're a good friend for helping your buddy move. Thomas says, sorry, I was calling them the Redskins, but why would Sam Howell get traded if he was so good? They could have built up the team by trading back and getting extra picks, but that's why the Redskins haven't won a Super Bowl since 92. Well, I think you answered definitely on the end of that. A little bit of your questions answered by your own answer there in the deal. Is that this is why Washington has been bad. Organizations are bad for a reason. They're not bad because they're just have bad luck and they just keep getting clipped by things outside of their control. They are bad because they make bad decisions and choices. I think the reason on this one's actually a fairly simple and straightforward reason on this, Thomas. If you're going to have a young quarterback in the building, then there's a pretty commonality amongst NFL teams that what you're then going to do is go get a veteran so that he can be there to be the extra coach. He can be the extra guy in the locker room to guide that young player through the ups and downs and help him look around corners, so to speak, Thomas. So if you go and draft your quarterback, Drake May or Jaden Daniels in this draft, if you're Washington, you're not supplying that guy with Sam Howell, right? That guy and Sam Howell is in the same place those young quarterbacks are in, where he's like, I'm just figuring this crap out too, man. I don't know what to do on that. That's a good question. I don't know. Let's ask the coach, Versus the veteran quarterback will be like, yeah, it's a cover 2 go. You make the read to the short field side and then come back to the flat on the back side. It's like this is the difference there. And this is proven by Thomas. Washington gave Marcus Mariota $9 million to be just that backup for their rookie quarterback. So it's just the way that you tend to build your quarterback room up, where you're not going to have 2 young guys both at the same time, because you're not helping them on, I think, their growth and development. Whereas a vet QB in that room can hasten that process a little bit. Snail says, B, to me, I see Sam Howell as a Kirk Cousins with better mobility, and I think that's enough with the right team, which is why I'm excited. I like that comp. I totally like that comp. And yeah, I could see that. Definitely more mobility. Cousins might have a little more of a snappier release, but close enough. Close enough. I certainly think there's that upside to him, Snail. Yes. Yeah, Kirk Cousins didn't get a chance to really, truly start for the first time in his career full time until his 4th year. And in his 4th year, he had 70%, 69% completion percentage, threw for 4,100 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions in 2015. And that's, of course, with Kyle Shanahan as his coach. But you look at even year 3 of Kirk Cousins. So he's drafted 2012, sits on the bench, drafted 2013, his second year in the league, or the second year of when Sam Howell was playing. He threw 4 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, did Kirk Cousins in his 3rd year in the league. His second year in the league, sorry. That was his second year in the league. So the same year where Howell was throwing for 4,000 yards and 21 interceptions, you get Kirk Cousins out there for his cup of coffee on the field. He can barely throw for 52% completion percentage, 854 yards, 4 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, and a 58 quarterback rating in his second year. The same year, Sam Howell is going out and throwing for 4,000 yards. Should have Washington at that time, for the people that don't think Howell has any upside, should Washington at that time, because that was year 2, should they have made the determination at that point that Kirk Cousins couldn't play? No, you say, let's give him an extra year. Okay, because he didn't barely get a chance to play, right? So then you come back to 2014. That's the 3rd year Kirk Cousins played. 61% completion percentage, 1,710 yards, 10 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 86 rating. That's year 3 of the Kirk Cousins experience. It wasn't even until year 4 that he became a functionally decent quarterback in this league. Again, having Kyle Shanahan throughout his whole time of development there. What a guy is in year 1 and 2, what a young quarterback is in year 1 or 2 is not the final end all be all of what they will become or who they are as a player. Phil Castle, I see Howell's a little upgrade version of Baker Mayfield. I like it, Philip. It's another good comp. And great comp there, Snail. Boy, going back and looking at Cousins through that first couple of years there, man. Took him some time. Thomas says, I agree. I've seen 40 some odd years of quarterbacking. I just feel it's easier to have a great quarterback instead of having a game manager. It can be done, but the whole team has to be really legit. It's true. I guess the question comes down to, on that, Thomas, is it easier to build a team up around a game manager that can be legit, or is it easier to go find that great quarterback? And in my opinion on it, I think it's getting harder and harder to necessarily just go find that great quarterback. I think there's truer and truer of those true blue guys that are really great. I guess that's where it comes down to the heart of this problem for me with going getting the future guys. I want the future guy like everybody else does. I want to get the star quarterback in the position like everybody else does. I really do. I guess I'm more growing skeptical, Thomas, that we're going to have a pathway to getting that done. I'm not sure that John Steiner is going to have the stones to package the picks to move up to go get it done. And so then it becomes looking at that alternative road a little bit more stronger. Eric Kunanen. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, Eric. Thank you for becoming a Hawks Nest Pro Bowl member. And do please take a look at your community posts, as I just did post out start to post the beginning parts of the draft guide today out there for members of the channel. So do please keep an eye on that. I think now is probably as good a time as any to thank the sponsor of the show, which is Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy sponsoring the Hawks Nest throughout the course of this season and off season. You can click on the top of the link in the description section below, or use my code NEST when you first go to the Underdog Fantasy site. And when you put up to $100, they will match you up to $100 of your first deposit. So $100 from me to you through the Underdog Fantasy app when you use my code, and you support the channel at the very same time. There are restrictions that are limiting in the state of Washington, no doubt about that. But if you are in a casino in the state of Washington, you are able to use the app in full, or outside the state. A lot of other states, you have a little bit more of an option to use it there. You've got baseball, basketball, March Madness still ongoing here, finishing up, I guess I should say. Plenty still to get in on. You can do daily fantasy there. It's got every kind of match and kind of contest you could want to get into on their side of it. But you can support me today over there on the Underdog Fantasy app. Thank you to them for supporting the channel. And thank you, Eric, for also supporting and joining the channel. Thomas says, I'm trying to think of multiple scenarios. If Hal becomes the guy, we hope, then great. I'm just worried if Seattle will ever trade up, especially if Sanders or Ewers are available. It's kind of the $1 million question for me too, Thomas. And, I'm thinking that there's definitely good potential that they could do that. But it's also, again, the track record of John. It just may be a no-go place for him, But we're going to learn on that, I think, very clearly by next year even, Thomas. I think we're going to get a really kind of closer answer to this, and it'll be less of an enigma, because that will be the time to make that trade. Even with having Hal on the roster, he'll have only one more year of club control after next year. So you have to, with probably the ticking clock on Geno, make some kind of decision or determination there one way or the other. But hard to say, man. The other thing that's in play on this, Thomas, is the potentiality of, does a veteran become available? That's been the other rung of this to go out there and get. If it's not a guy to be drafted, maybe it's a vet who's still a very talented vet on a team that wants to move on for different reasons. Their time's not right. They don't want to do the contract, whatever it could be, to where you're able to jump on it in that fashion too. So I think there's a couple different ways to maybe solve this potential issue, but it would be nice if they could find just their young QB of the future. Snail says, yeah, Drake May is a higher upside prospect than Hal. I'm not crazy, but we're not getting a Drake May prospect unless we suck. Yeah. Agreed on that. Thomas says, it would make me laugh if May falls to 16. May's pro day was not that good. Yeah, I think he's going to get locked in. That'd be pretty funny, though. Herbicide, Hawks Nest, in your opinion, how many men would it take to take down a full-size silverback gorilla? Ooh. Well, the thing with it is, as mean as gorillas are, they're not chimpanzee mean. Like they don't get that crazy with it. They've got pretty affable natures overall, so they're not fierce with it. So I think probably less than we might think it would take. I think five regular size guys, 6 foot guys, 190, 200 pounds, who weren't pusses, could take down a full size gorilla silverback. I think 5 could do it. May take 8. 5, between 5 and 8. You just tell everybody, you go grab an arm, you go grab a leg, and then you just hold on to that sucker. and then everybody attack at once. Thomas says, that's true. Did you hear when Elway was getting drafted, Elway was okay to be a Seahawk? His wife was from Seattle. I remember that. We had the opportunity to get him. We were not willing to give up one more extra first-round pick to pull him in. That was the cost that it would have taken to get him, and we didn't do it, which just is, the two quarterbacks Seahawks had in history that they had a real chance of going and getting that they passed on was Elway and Brett Favre. Chuck Knox wanted Favre, and Behring wanted Dan McGuire. Ugh. Thomas says, yeah, maybe if Howell becomes Cousins, I'd be okay with it, especially if Howell gets better in Grubb's scheme. I think there's some really good possibilities of that, Thomas. As I was referencing there with Cousins' stats and where he's been at, where he was at in his first couple of years versus what he became in year 4, year 5, year 6. And again, with Howell on this, Thomas, of course, he's going back to that spread system where he was at his most successful in college in his sophomore year. Blue and Green says, and Schneider found Wilson. No telling who he'll find to sit with Howell and compete. It's true. Very true. Nick says, a game manager isn't someone who breaks the record for most game-winning touchdown passes in a season IMO. It's a good point, man. It's a good point. He also had a lot of big-time throws, to your point on that, too, with Hal last year. Brian says 3 Andres of the Giants and 4 Trent Williams. That'd get it done, Brian. I feel like their nature is because they just eat leaves and they're just kind of, they're big and yoked out or gorillas, but it's also a bit of the nature, taking on a gorilla versus like a bear, for instance, or something, Yeah, Thomas crazy about that Elway thing, huh? Brutal. That's a great question. If Howell becomes good quarterback, then I'm fine with it. It was never losing picks for me. Yeah. A little risk. That's where it comes down to, too, Thomas. It's the low-cost, high-reward situation with Howell. Nick says if it's average humans, it's got to be 40 to 60 humans to take down one silverback? No way. Nick says Google says they're as strong as 20 men. 20 seems like a lot. I mean, I definitely think 20 would get it done. No doubt about that. But if we're talking about the bare minimum needed to get it done, come on, we get it done with 8. If every guy's got an arm, and then you got some redundancy there for the guy who's like, he's a lefty, I can't hold on, and he can come in there and help out on the, I think Egg gets it done. Robbie Red says, are you streaming any Mariner games this season? I believe, Robbie, I've given a lot of thought to this, and at the moment, I'm not really driven to do much of the streaming of the Mariners side of it. In recent seasons, I haven't found that there's a very big audience as far as Mariner fans when it comes to the streaming side of it, That's not the main issue at play, though, for me. I don't mind if there's 15, 20 people in there. That's cool. The thing that's made it tough for me, though, in doing it is just that the Mariners don't play a very fun brand of baseball to watch. Look at the offensive problems they've already started out having, which is the yearly issue with the Mariners that they never correct or fix. Certainly didn't fix it this last offseason. And when it comes down to the Mariners, it comes down to this. It doesn't matter whether we're talking basketball, baseball, football. I don't care the sport. If there are teams that are going to spend $100, $120, $140 million than my team has no chance to compete. I don't want to hear about, well, you can't buy your way in baseball to a championship. Shut up. You can miss me with that. I've watched baseball for decades and decades and decades. And what was an issue at 1995 is still an issue today. And I've got to say, 25 years of it has gotten old when the first 20 years of my life, it was just you not even trying to even spend $1. And so I have a hard time as a fan, Robbie, feeling like you as an organization aren't really committed to truly building a winner. You're committed to trying to make sure that you win just enough games to fill up your stadium every year. And that doesn't provide me any kind of interest. These games are long. There's 162 of them. If you're going to want my investment in it in that way as a fan, then you got to show me you're committed to winning. That's what this is about for me watching sports. I enjoy the athleticism and the majesty of team-based concepts and all that. But at the end of the day, I want to see my home team out there trying to win and truly having a chance to win. And if I enter into a match knowing that there's no chance for them to win, or I enter into a season there's no chance for them to win, why should I watch? What, so they can, maybe they get lucky? I feel like I got other things I can do that are more productive. And I'm trying to be a fair weather fan, but you got to understand with this too, from my perspective, Robbie, is that it ain't like me watching for 5 years of bad baseball, or 10 years, or 15, or 20, or 25, or 30, or 35, or 40. It's like 50 years of basically complete shit football. I can't do it. I can't do no more of it, man. They need to decide if they want to try to compete or not. Metal Dragon, you can find great quarterbacks, but if you never take a quarterback, well, you're not going to get one. I don't think we should consider how the future they need to draft a quarterback. I don't think it prevents them from drafting a quarterback at all. I don't, Metal Dragon. Absolutely. We were talking about earlier on the stream, when you went and drafted Russell Wilson, you had just signed Matt Flynn to the big deal that you signed him to. You had still Tavares Jackson on the roster. So certainly they could go back down that line again. Daddy Dennis says, he said Ken Behring, that's 12 push-ups. Thomas says, if that Paul Allen, Seattle would have grabbed Favre. Yeah, Paul Allen would have listened to Chuck Knox. Because that's the whole famous, it's the famous quote from Chuck Knox where they were asking him about Dan McGuire and he said, I don't know, talk to the owner. I wanted the kid from Mississippi. The quote from Knox is something like that. I wanted the kid from Mississippi. Oh, God, that stings. Chuck Knox with Brett Favre. Oh, my God. Chuck liked to air it out, too. Next week, it has to be Killer Whales. Herbicide says, no way 8 gets it done. I don't know. I got 4 for each arm and leg, and then I got 4 backups. Save the Geese says, watch someone clip this, and you'll get a bunch of people saying it'll take more than 8 men to take down a full-size gorilla. I'm going to stand on the 8 men mark. I think 8 gets it done. I've seen the videos of gorillas dragging guys, and everybody gets all like, they do that move in the jungle, right, where everybody's up at the, sitting around the gorillas in the first place, like, oh, we're shocked, gorillas are here. You knew there were going to be gorillas. You went on the damn tour. And then one of the big ones comes across and he's like, and he just grabs the guy and starts dragging him, and the guy's like, as he's being dragged. And then the gorilla lets him go. They're not really fierce creatures, They'll do the pound move, They'll do you got to get away from the pound move. But it's not like they're out there doing jujitsu and stuff, Give me 8 good men, and we're taking down that damn gorilla. Fleece the Mac says, everyone make sure you like your video. You're a legend. Thank you, Fleece the Mac. I appreciate it, man. Swedish says Russ is about to post his silverback workout video on Instagram. Save the Geese says, I think gorillas in the wild have rarely ever harmed humans. They have, yeah. They're very docile creatures for the most part. Like even when they get in fights, they're like real quick fights. Nick says, do I survive a backhand from a silverback? Probably not. If I got to just stand there and like put my chin out there and let him have a freebie, no. You know what I mean? Like, but is he super accurate? You know, does he got the Mike Tyson fist? He can kind of come quick with at it. You know, like, are you getting fast punches? You know, you get a little bit of that Tyson Fury, like long arm length stuff coming at you. No, you're going to be able to see that stuff coming. You're going to be able to dip that, right? Got to keep your eyes active. Got to keep the head bob going, right? But they're just used to gorillas looking at him being like, you know, hitting stationary targets. We're going to be moving. Me and my 8 guys are going to be moving. Okay. We ain't just going to be standing in place. And he's going to be all confused. Yeah. They get all confused when you give animals multiple things to look at once or deal with. They get completely overwhelmed. You know, they can't process at that point. Daddy Dennis says an NFL arbitrator today ordered the Arizona Cardinals to pay $3 million to former team executive Terry McDonough for false and defamatory statements. Cardinals doing Cardinal things, man, Daddy Dennis. Oh, Arizona never change. We don't give that ownership as much of a hard time as we probably should. The Bidwells get a real free pass, right? Where Mark Davis doesn't, Tepper doesn't, Jerry Jones doesn't. We probably should start giving the Bidwells a little bit less of a free pass, huh? They always get voted by like the players every year as like one of the worst organizations. Hey, Dennis says Cart's trash talking their own and getting fined for it. Thomas says, until the Mariner organization does what the Huskies and Seahawks do and win championships or at least be competitive with free agency, it's like watching the Jets in football. It is. And, you know, the thing with it is there's really no way to dance around that $100 million+ difference between you and just even let's not even take all of baseball. I'm not even going to cherry pick a team like the Dodgers and go, well, look at the Dodgers. Just even the teams within your own division, Texas, Houston. How do you just, even with those teams in your own division, get it done when you're going up against that kind of disparity in what you're willing to spend? And it gets to it ain't a $10 million difference. It ain't $20 million. I'm talking over $100 million difference in what you're willing to spend. It doesn't become hard to understand why you can't compete at that point. It doesn't become hard to understand why you're the only team in Major League Baseball history, I think aside from like one other team maybe, that's never been to the World Series. Not won a World Series, just even been to the World Series. And it's very hard to watch ownerships groups every year just continually come back and talk about how we just don't have any money, you know, it's really tight right now. Like, we built you an effing stadium at our cost as taxpayers 20 years ago. We fill that stadium up on a yearly basis, whether you win or lose. What are you talking about? You have no money. It doesn't add up. It doesn't hold water. And it's not going to get my support. They can do what they're going to do, but I'm not going to support an organization. People give Jody a hard time at times. Well, she's really thinking about, you know, selling and, you know, I mean, that's really where she's at the end of the day. It's kind of, you know, it's just a matter of time. She's not, I mean, is she even really in it as an owner? You know, is she, I'm trying to get one of my bookmarks I want to show you guys on this. Here we go. So look at this. Like when I just told you about what the Mariners are doing, look at here with this right here, estimated cash spent. Not money that you put on the books and contracts, not money that you set out and and you were going to, you were going to spend on, but then you end up releasing the players and getting them off the hook. This is actual bottom line cash spent, total cash spent by football teams over the past 3 years. The Seahawks stand top 10 in the National Football League over the past 3 years in money spent, with over $1 billion they've spent on the books, $1.1 billion they've spent on the books in cumulative money spent out of their coming out of their pocket on players. So when you put that in comparison to a Mariners organization that can't even get within 100 million of teams within their own division, not all of baseball, but within their own division, what's the excuses at that point, right? Save the Geese says, I'm not into baseball at all. Way too many games. No idea how people can keep up with them with a full-time job and hobbies. Yeah, it's hard. I think there's also too many games in baseball. I agree with you there too, Save. It's way too long of a season, and it would probably benefit from going to something like 130 games a year. It would. If not more, because there's not enough that seems to matter over the course of the year, and it's long and arduous, and the games last for 3 hours, and it's a lot. Yeah, it's a heavy commitment. Brian E says Chuck Knox was 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but yeah, if it wasn't a moon ball, his quarterbacks didn't throw it at all. He was, but he was also, of course, Brian, yes, that was definitely at the forefront of Chuck. But then he would work in a lot of the go ball 9 route stuff, the deep post stuff. He would have worked off of that with the run game, because that's where, to me, Chuck didn't get as much appreciation for at times. The point with the run game was to bring the extra man defender in the box and then free his receivers up on the outside in one-on-one opportunities to get deep. And then you usually didn't oftentimes have the safety over the top to help. So he would have loved to have Favre where, yeah, he wouldn't have had Favre, Brian, to your point, as far as being a high volume passer like Holmgren did. But he would have definitely have utilized that big gun to let him take some shots down the field. And it would have been fun. Him and Brian Blades out there. I think because that was right at the end of Largent. Maybe would have extended Largent a couple of years. Largent would have seen him and been like, hey, maybe these old legs aren't so tired. Dick says, I drafted J-Rod 3rd overall in fantasy, and I'm already wishing I drafted Soto instead. They don't have any protection behind J-Rod, Why would any pitchers pitch to J-Rod? There's nobody behind him to make him pay the price for trying to walk him, especially J-Rod being kind of a bit of a free swinger at times. Nick says, thoughts on adding Laken Tomlinson or Cody Whitehair? Laken, I don't know if he would give quite enough ability to move at this point within this spread-based scheme, but he's been a pretty solid guard throughout his career. Whitehair gives you a little bit more versatility, but I don't think he's particularly played well in recent years. He's kind of been a guy that was pretty solid a few years ago, and it's been a little bit of a dipping down in his play. And so both of them are kind of trending a little bit in the wrong direction overall in their play. And Laken, I think, is a little bit more of that 330-pound, I'm going to just drive my guy off the ball kind of body. Thomas, you have a great night, man. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you. He says, good stream, Brando. Thank you, brother. Philip Castle says, Chuck had Madden style run the ball and then throw the bomb. That's it. It wasn't elegant. You're right, Philip. It was not elegant. Brian did too. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't diverse. But it was effective. Especially because the running game for Knox was pretty diverse. He'd hit you from angles. He'd pull guys in space. He'd go heavy. He'd go lighter in the box down there with it. He was willing to go some directions with it to make it harder on you. But that was kind of what it was, wasn't it? Lord Boom, Brandon, I know what I want in this draft. A big, mean offensive lineman. But I'm going to stress, I'm not worried about it. We pick what we pick. I'm just along for the ride this year. Go Hawks. You're going to find me in kind of the same state this year, Lord Boom. I think a lot of people are going to be chomping the bit or ready to go this year. Or we're going to do it. And I'm going to be pretty conservative in my outlook for the team on wins and losses. I'm going to be very much in kind of just enjoying what I'm watching in the development and getting to see something new here and getting to see just a different approach and sort of taking that all in. A lot of this year for me is going to be educational. I don't know as much about this scheme. I'm not as familiar with the Ryan defense. I have to kind of get into the depths of this and understand it. And so that's going to be fun for me to do that on this process. I'm in the same place, Lord Boom. I think jiu-jitsu Swedish Shinobi could work on a gorilla, especially got 4 guys doing it at once, 2 leg locks, couple arm bars, somebody with the guillotine in there. Come on, that would totally work. A gorilla using jiu-jitsu. Nick says Russ and Justin Fields causing Tomlin's first losing season is pretty funny to think about. I can't lie. It's either going to really work out well or be a rough road for them. I was hearing maybe they were trying to look at Brandon Ayuk in a trade and adding that into the mix, but it's going to be that'll be one of the more interesting situations to monitor in the league out there in Pittsburgh. Swedish Shinobi says Silverbacks can't function without a clean pocket and fold under the pressure of a successful blitz. That's right. It's too much stuff coming at him. Nick says, I had never thought about it, but I can't imagine Arizona is Marvin's first choice. Probably not. I think a lot of players are like, I mean, already you got to wear that silly bird on the helmet. Like, at least our bird looks ferocious, They've got an East Coast cardinal on their helmet. They don't even have the type of cardinal that exists in Arizona. They've got the one with the stupid noodle on its nose, the turkey noodle on its nose. Like, that's not the cardinal that even exists in Arizona. Say nothing of the fact the ownership sucks. But I don't know. Maybe Nick, maybe that's why Marvin's not doing a pro day. He's like, maybe I can kind of get Malik to go to Arizona. I'll go somewhere else. I'll go to Chicago. Daddy Dennis, if you read what Bidwell did to his former general manager, your stomach will turn. Ugh. I'll look it up. I hadn't heard. Knowingly lied about him beating his wife and abandoning his disabled daughter. Horrific. That is brutal stuff. That's there's some wild, you get some kind of left field stories for the Bidwell stuff. They're not as like with Jerry Jones, you get it's all that personnel and them coming in on the personnel and Jerry talking too much. With Davis, it's just, dude, does he have enough money? Has he taken too many pills today? Bidwell's just got some random stuff that comes into play that some of the players that lead the organization end up being pretty mad, like Patrick Peterson, and there's some bitterness from people coming out of that organization. That's crazy. Lord Boom Brandon, let me end this conversation about surviving a silverback smack. A silverback can produce 1,300 to 1,700 pounds of pressure per arm. That is enough to shatter your skull and knock your soul to heaven. Yeah, but it's also like, it's going to be that big, like, it ain't going to be the fast hook. I'm going to have time to see that thing coming, man. I just got to bob and weave, man. It's all about the bob and weave. A lot of bob and a lot of weave. Herbicide, I will give Gannon props. He did a lot better job last year than I thought he was going to do. That's for sure. That is for sure. Daddy Dennis says, when I see Mariner dancing after a regular season win, I wish there were still falling ceiling tiles like the Kingdom days. Snail says, yeah, baseball would be better if it was 6 innings and maybe 50 games a year. Yeah, just too many. Just way too many. It gets exhausting as you're covering it through the year, and it just is, oh my God. All right. Okay. They've tried to do things to spice it up a bit, but it's got a ways to go. Daddy Dennis, the Mariners will never win a World Series. They traded the best player ever and made the Sonics leave. Boo on them. Oh, and they let Dave Niehaus pass without getting to call a World Series game. Very sad. Niehaus never got to, man. Boy, he was a great announcer. And yeah, it's been a lot of years of this, It's been a lot of years of this. Mr. Dog, the Hawks Nest. It's like when the government issues a tax credit for buying an electric vehicle, so the car manufacturer just raises the price of the car by the same amount. It's business. That's true. That's true. I guess that is true on that. Nick says, if you clone Brock Lesnar, over under 5 of him to take down the silverback down. Man, Brock is pretty big. I think you still need 7 Brocks, or at least I need 1 more Brock. 5 seems like not enough on the Brock. But then it depends. Do I get full Brock, like 25 years old, juiced to the nines? I mean, I'm talking like 3 meals a day of steroids. That Brock might chew the face off of that gorilla. That version of Brock. The field sucks too. Yeah, the Cardinal field does suck too. And they got no excuse for it sucking because they got all the sunlight in the world to make the grass good. It's natural field. I don't know why it sucks so much. Zen Lunatic says, put a cactus on their helmets. Those hurt. A cactus would be better than that stupid bird. Like, whose idea was it at one point or another to choose the most unferocious bird in the whole bird family? Hey, let's choose the one that has no viciousness at all to it or aggressiveness, you know? And then get that version of the bird with the turkey swag on the front of its nose. Let's get that too. That'll scare the opposition. First thing I do if I was a Cardinal, I'm like, we are redesigning this logo. It's a legacy logo. Yeah, it's a legacy of crap. It's a legacy of being laughed at. We are changing this logo immediately. The Cardinal is about to get ferocious. Herbicide says gorillas are nothing but a big mass of fast twitch muscle. I don't know. I mean, I've seen him do the double. I've seen him do the double hand pound move, and I feel like if that's coming at me, I feel like a couple steps left, right, I can get off to the side of it. I'm going to need some help. I am one-on-one in this beast, but I mean, you know, a little bob and weave, I'll get around it. Yeah, Gannon did a good job. I knocked him a lot for his pew, 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 but he did a good job. Smack, we're playing the Bills at home in 2024. Much better than playing them on the road, Fleece the Mac. That's a brutal spot to go try to win a football game. I don't know if in my lifetime I can remember us going into Buffalo and winning. We probably did in like 1986 or something, but it hasn't happened in a long time. Long time. Swedish Snowy says 1 Brock Lesnar and 1 Brock and Salk. Is that getting it done? What's Salk going to do? Bite at its ankles? That might be just enough. Yeah, I think that'd be enough because we get to my original thing of 8 men plus Salk. That's like a half a guy. So that's like 8.5. I think that gets it done. Then all Salk does is he looks like that one Knicks basketball coach once who was trying to break up a fight and he ended up just holding onto the ankle and getting drugged across the floor on the ankle. That would basically be Salk on that one. Snail says, Brandon, you have some wild ideas on gorillas. Laugh my ass off. I feel confident about this take. I do. I don't think gorillas are nothing. Herbicide says, I don't even think Arizona has Cardinals in it. I think they do. It's just that's a different. When I looked at some story came across I had read a couple years ago that it was a different type of Cardinal, and that they were still using the logo from the Midwest Cardinal. Lord Boom says, Brandon, okay, bro, I'm with you. Although I'm not sure if we'll have any success fighting a silverback gorilla, but I'm willing to live and die with the 12s. Go Hawks! Come on, yeah, let's do this. You want to live forever, Lord Boom? Imagine the stories you get to tell about the time you tangled with a gorilla, with a silverback, nonetheless. The baddest of gorillas. Daddy Dennis says, I was a Kingdom kid, swore off the team when they traded Griffey. That was definitely one of the more painful moments in my childhood, was Griffey getting traded. Because that was one of my, definitely one of my sports heroes growing up too. That was a brutal time. Lisa Max says, trade down and get Troy Fatano at 25. I don't think he lasts at 25, Fleece. I think Fatano's got a good chance. There's a lot of NFL boards that he's driven himself up to the number 2 left tackle in the draft. especially after testing really well and coming out with like 34-inch long arms. I think he's going to be pretty well set. Well, yeah, grenade, bro, the Cardinal isn't even the state bird. I know it's pathetic. Like, just change it. Like, why are you guys all married to it? It's not like anybody's going to care in Arizona. Nobody's married to the Cardinal like, oh, we got a legacy of losing. That's the exact kind of legacy you want to, shake off. Blackhawks would be better. No, we don't need another Hawk. We need to be the only Hawk. But something. I mean, there's something. Scorpions. They got scorpions all over the place in Arizona. There's no scorpions. It's waiting to be. It'd be even a cool logo on the side with the thing with the, deal, stinger. Like Diamondbacks is a good one for Arizona. That was a great pick for them. Swedish Shinobi says Salk seems like the kind of guy that would consider calling HR on the gorilla. It's like, guys, no, I got this. Let me make a call. Nick says, from wrestling fans, Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley, and Andre the Giant, Scott Steiner, Rick Steiner, and Braun Breaker. I got money on that combination. They could pull it off. That's enough bodies there. I think they could make it happen. Especially the Steiner brothers. They'd be working together on that telekinesis thing or that psychic thing going on. Percent says I still got the gorilla. Arizona roadkill. Arizona retirees. It's Arizona retirees, and it's just like the purple hair and then the silhouette of like an old woman, but then the purple hair on the side of the helmet, like a real bouffant kind of hair coming off, right? That'd be the new Cardinal logo. Give her like red eyes and just the silhouette. Roadkill have a like an armadillo with its legs up, 4 legs up in the air on the side of the helmet. Philip Castle, 2012, last time the Hawks beat the Bills. And that one was at, yeah, okay, so that was on the road, but Philip, that was in Toronto. So it was kind of a neutral site. Something happened I think they had like a snowstorm or something. So we got to play him in Toronto. But when was the last time we actually beat him in Buffalo? Jaden Cruz, the Cardinals did used to be the St. Louis Cardinals. They did. Oh, yeah. I get where they got the logo. It's just the one thing is with that, Jaden, you think when they trade, move from one to the other, you change the logo, you update it. It's kind of weird that they didn't. Arizona heat strokes. Yeah, there's Arizona Diamondbacks in Arizona Holy Hand Grenade. Nick says, don't count on Rick's son, Braun Breaker. He actually made the Ravens roster as a fullback before he started wrestling. Oh, wow. Nice. Now a bit of an athlete, huh? Chris says, give me the Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man. The gorilla will think they're nuts and constipated and just walk away. There'll be a lot of noise and fury before any touching goes on with those two guys there, Oh, yeah, I'm going to give me a gorilla. I'm going to take him down. I'm going to make him hurt. I'm going to make him be bad. And then you just have Warrior out there roid raging, losing his mind. Holy Hand Grenade, is there a rule where if a professional sports team already has a name, another sport can't also use it? No. I think we've got some examples of this in other places, right? We kind of got it in basketball to even us. You have the Atlanta Hawks, and then you've got the Seattle Seahawks. So I think there's nothing necessarily against it. I think teams want to be unique and have their own thing because you don't want there to be any confusion. But I don't think that there's technically a rule against it. Nick says, Chris, the Steiners were crazy as hell. Swedish Shinobi, the Arizona empty trophy cases. Oh. Daddy Dennis, the story of the guy who can't hit the Mariners' name is so crazy. I gotta look that up. Snail says, dodging gorilla's punches is like saying you're going to outrun a bear. That sounds real good from your couch. No, I wouldn't say I could outrun a bear. Because I know how fast, but bears are legit fast. They'll get you. I've never seen a gorilla throwing a punch where I was like, man, I saw the punch here and then he threw it, but I didn't see where he threw it and he pulled back. You can always, they do that big looping, comes up here and it comes down. It's coming down with force and power. I'm not saying it's not. But if he's throwing it at me, if he's throwing that big long thing at me, I got time to get out of the way of it. Now, if he's trying to grab me, it's another story. But if we got 5 guys grabbing at him, he's going to be too busy trying to get off my arm. I'm going to be over there just pop. Oh, shit. These discussions, you guys. Minnesota empty cases. Spaces, you ever seen Grizzly Man? Yeah. Yeah, of course. That guy was, he was wanting to die, basically. And it's kind of a wonder he made it. It sort of shows you a bit like with the Grizzlies of how like actually affable they are and how few attacks you even get with Grizzlies where, that guy's out there like slapping Grizzlies in the face when they get too close confidently. Like he's not about to get his ass beat and getting away with it, because they are pretty like docile creatures overall. It's like, even at the time of year where he got 8, it was only because that's when they're in rut season, right? And they're trying to mate. And so males are all tuned up at that time of year and got himself in trouble with that. But I wouldn't mess with a grizzly. Grizzly is different. A grizzly will eat you as you're still alive. That's a whole nother. You got claws. You got a sharp teeth. And all the same kind of power you get off a gorilla. That bee was hungry. That bear was hungry. He was mad. They just get angry. Well, grenade, you know what they say with bears: black fight back, brown lying down, polar start praying and running, and hopefully you live. Yeah, polars are probably the meanest of them. That's for sure. You don't mess with the polars. And yeah, it's always tough when they tell you with this animal, this huge monstrous animal, it's going to get you the best bets. Just lie down and play dead. As he's pulling out strips of flesh from your back, just remain soundless and act like you're already dead because he'll move on. Hopefully. I don't even think a cocaine bear needs cocaine with a silverback. I think a bear would take a silverback apart. The bears are built to fight. Like those things go to war constantly. They got that skin where they can have a full grizzly ripping at the skin, pulling, and they can't get anything because there's too much fur and all that. Like they will slice through a silverback like nothing. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be around for mating season either, Chris. That's when those bears go nuts. And that's what happened to that grizzly man, guys. He was down there at a time of year where even hunters don't go down in that area of things, and people know better. And it's in a valley where they're all down there mating and doing all that stuff. But that's what he was doing that on purpose. He wanted to die. He put himself right there in the most dangerous part. He was claiming it was for other reasons, but he was, in retrospect, we know he's trying to do. Well, he's back. We got a new logo in 2002 when we joined the NFC, that year where I was born, and when Paul Allen bought the Seahawks and saved us. That's true. Old logo is pretty badass, though. Snail says, Brandon, go watch Silverbacks fight, laughing out loud. I will probably be checking out some Silverbacks fighting tonight, actually. Chris is koala bears, king of the chlamydia. I ain't following a koala. No, I ain't finding a koala either. No, they do. They're rampant chlamydia out there with them. Lord Boom, Brandon, I see the problem here, bro. According to Wikipedia, a silverback gorilla can move faster than DK Metcalf. Let me repeat. The average speed for a silverback is 25 miles an hour. How you doing that? Well, I'm not going to let him chase me. I'm facing him straight up. So he's not going to, he isn't going to do that. I'm going to take you off your feet, knock you off your feet. He's trying to, he's trying to swing and get at me, But as long as I'm just kind of dodging and weaving and keeping his hands off me, I'm okay. Remember, too, I'm not fighting him one-on-one. I got 7 other guys here. We're all giving him the business. Who's he going to attack? And maybe one of us has to die. Maybe he goes after one of us and he's like, and we're just all just, sorry, Bob. Sorry, man. We'll make it worth it. We'll make it worth it, Bob. I swear. So sorry. I'm so sorry. And Bob's over there like, no, just get it off me. Like, we're trying. Might have to sacrifice one, okay? One guy might not make it out of that. Herbicide, I got an elephant over a hippo. Oh, yeah. Elephant would stomp out a hippo. But elephants always got kind of a little bit of that intelligence. Like, they attack. You can see how their smartness when they go to attack stuff. Like, and then you really understand how big and strong they are. They are just legit. David Pugh, thank you for the $20 donation, David. I really, really do appreciate you for that, my man. He says 20 different teams have the top 5 pick the draft dating back to 2017. Since then, those teams have produced a total of 8 playoff appearances, only 2 Super Bowl appearances. You goobers who want a mediocre team to tank are just misinformed. Great thoughts on this, David, and thank you so much, man, for the fat donation as well, on top of some great thoughts in this. It's the place, of course, that I'm trying to kind of drive to in this discussion with the quarterback, and it's a long road of fighting that we've not fighting, but debating we've done and discussion we've done on this. And it's that I think there's a drive at times to simplify things in football in a way where it is such a complicated sport with so many nuances and so many things that this thing affects that thing that affects that thing. And it's not a sport for simplification. I think there are sports that are for simplification. You know, listen to the way that a guy like LeBron talks about the modern basketball and how it's played. There's a lot of simplification within that. You know, 1-on-1, set up a guy over the corner for the 3-ball look. Let him have the 3-ball look. Everybody just bow, you know. It's very simple. But football's not that way. There's so much more to it. Part of the beauty to me of the sport, David, is part of why I love it so much. Part of why I love talking about it so much is that it has those depths of layers that other sports don't have, which means the drive to go to the simple, the drive to just say, let's go find the Michael Jordan. It's a wayward approach. It's not an approach that's really one that gives you a lot of tangible success. And yet it is one that does permeate fan bases in the thought that just get the quarterback. And it's not just fan bases. I mean, I see people that are talking heads, former personnel guys, former guys that talk about that are general managers who talk in this manner and way. And I just look at them and I go, well, there's the reason that you don't have a job right now. You're looking at an intricate job with a lot of difficulty in assembling and putting together that team. And yet you've just locked in on this one position as being your savior to fix your whole situation. And that's what it really is viewed as at times, the savior to fix the whole situation. And I think that this is the road that leads to teams not only not getting the Super Bowl, but like you mentioned, in those teams that have been picking with that top 5 pick since 2017, that it's also the road that leads you right back to ruin and not finding any success because you're not dealing with your foundational principles. You're not building that foundation up first and foremost. You're trying to skip ahead to the front of the line, skip ahead and past all the hard work that has to be done to set the stage for that player. And I think it's misaligned. And you agree with this as too, David. I just think it's a position that is not going to take us back to success by concentrating on that solely. We've got to lock into me on getting back to building up that team first and foremost, and then we'll figure the quarterback situation out as we need to. And it's the opposite drives. The 2 drives here are that drive I just mentioned, which some of us like me and David are kind of in, and let's approach the quarterback position with a sense of patience and being kind of precise in what we're doing. And then there's the other side of it, which is sort of like the rest of it doesn't matter. Just go get this quarterback. You'd have some out there that would tell you in this draft, you know, what you should just do is just throw this whole draft to the wind. Go offer New England all of your picks to go move up and get your QB because that's the only thing that matters right now. You know, there are some people that would make that argument, and I do think it's one that would not lead us to success, David. I think this is the pathway to go with it. And if we can get the great quarterback, then great. I'm all in favor of it if you have the opportunity to jump and go grab that guy, but the opportunity is going to have to present itself. That's for sure. Holy Hand Grenade says, we went from talking about gorillas to Cardinals changing their names to Bears, and this is a Seahawks channel. Well, it's off-season discussion. You know what I mean? Brian Myers, elephant's too slow. Yeah, but the hippo's angry and aggressive, so it's gonna engage the elephant and make it fight. You know? Daddy Dennis Costco was selling bear spray fat last year. It was sold out very fast. It's definitely helpful to have that out and about, though I will say some of those bears, there are certain bears that'll just run right through that bear spray. My dream job is giving out free samples at Costco. Here's Hawks Nest. How many brown bears would it take to kill an African elephant? Ooh, I don't know. Ooh. How many brown bears? I think it would take like 5. Something like that. That'd be a good fight. Chris says, we had a black bear in our suburban neighborhood for about 4 months last summer. Hoping she or he pops up again because caused no harm and loves swimming in the pools and recycle bins. Nice. Yeah, they can be okay for a while until they go sideways, man. But the black bears are they keep their distance. It's the grizzlies that can be a little bit aggressive. Arizona Aliens, who's with me? I like that better than Cardinals. That's got a little bit of foreboding to it. And yeah, you could do just the big old egghead look thing to it, right? Or says there's no lime prides will take on a pissed adult elephant. Yeah, they're legit. Because they are smart. Like, they don't just sit there and, they're just dumbly, lumbering around. Like, they'll grab a stick with their trunk and start slamming you with a stick or something, Like, they've got a little bit of some intelligence they can work. Snails' barrier spray only works if you use it before you're attacked. If the bear wants to get you, some of you better have a gun because bear spray will just make you extra spicy. I live and camp around bears. Yeah, I lived in Montana for a while, and that was what they would tell us too. Is like, yeah, have the spray, but make sure you got your gun too when you go out, because it is. There's some bears, if you get them in the right state of mind, like that guy in the grizzly, man, like they get their blood up and they're going in a certain direction with their thought. Or you get a mama bear trying to protect her cubs, and she ain't gonna care the least bit about that bear spray. Swedish Shinobi says Arizona Area 51s. I like that. Sounds more like a baseball team. Oh, it's still more like foreboding and intimidating than the Cardinals. Yeah. This is the best dream ever. Thank you, Stale. And yeah, they definitely would attack the older elephants and the infirmed and the young. They can't move real fast when they're young, especially, but you got to get them picked apart from the adults. I was expecting some fan fiction for Blitz retiring. Is Blitz retiring? Arizona Irrelevance. There we go. Well, we've got ourselves about 3 hours in the show today. So let's put in maybe the last couple questions in and kind of put a bit of button in this. We've got a long week of shows planned up for you guys this week. We're going to be doing B&B show on Tuesday and Thursday this week, where I think we're looking at the running backs on tomorrow, and then we'll be looking at the receivers on Thursday. I got the Wednesday show as well this week. We'll be doing another show here on the Hawks Nest at that time. Don't exactly have it decided. I think I'm going to be looking at something in particular, but I need to go back and look at some stuff to get that show done and set up for on that side of it. Snail says you guys are sleeping on the hippopotamus. Hippopotamus, when it comes to taking on a dude and taking a dude down, no doubt about it. But boy, a hippo against an elephant, I think the elephant's got the hippo, especially if it's a big elephant. Just put their hand down on him. Arizona snowbirds. It'd be Arizona snowbirds, and then it'd be the state of Minnesota on the side of their helmet, representing where they go during the summer. Arizona lot lizards. Oh my God! Trailer park on the side, just a big old wide. Snails says I got $12 on the hippo versus the elephant and water. Okay. Water would level the playing field a little bit with that. It would. And hippo's got that bite. I mean, they just got to take one real nice bite off the elephant and it's game over. But land on land, elephant's going to find a way to get one of those big paws on the hippo and keep it from moving, and then just stomp it with the other one. Maybe just roll it over with their trunk. Holy Hand Grenade says, I can just see some rando coming into this for the first time looking for some Hawks content. We're talking about bears and gorillas and just being perplexed as F. Got to keep them on their toes here, man. Can't let people get a little too comfortable here, man, you know? Cali's a waste and I live here, and Seattle is not that bad. Pretty nice and cool. That he does. I'm moving down to Southern Cal soon. Lord Boom, I actually don't think there's any scenario where a bear or hippo or gorilla or tiger or lion takes down a male bull elephant. I don't either. I certainly think an elephant would destroy a gorilla. I think the hippo would be a fight, but I think it's got it. I think a bear one-on-one is taking a bear out. Tiger, yeah, what's a tiger going to do? I mean, it's just got to get on its head behind its neck and hope it could, like, maybe, I don't know, stay up there and work it down or something, I guess. Elephants are bad mofos, though. Lord Boom says elephants aren't really slow. You can't judge them on the way they move. You have to judge them on space they cover when they move. They're so big, they just don't have to be fast to cover a lot of ground. That's true. It's more the baby elephants I was thinking with that one. You catch them when they're a little slower at that age. But yeah, when they're big, they can get to moving. You can definitely find some YouTube videos of some like Jurassic Park T-Rex moments where they're driving away in the little Jeep and the elephant's coming behind them, you know. And they're like, drive faster. I'm trying. I've got the pedal down. Go faster. I am. And it's like getting closer to them, you know. No. He says on land, elephant, and in water, hippo. Home court advantage is real in the Serengeti. I could see that. Yeah. Elephants go in the water and just start biting at ankles and stuff. Elephant can't see where the hippo's at. Can't move really well. I definitely put my money on the hippo in those moments. Jason Rusk, elephants are mean. One killed a lady and showed up at her funeral and attacked her casket. True story. That's true. Happened a couple of years ago in India. Killed her, and then supposedly she was a pretty mean lady to the elephants too, though. It's one of those things where there's these stories of animals occasionally where you get these, you know, they get a bone to pick with an individual person. There's always that story of like I think it was a tiger or lion in a zoo, and these kids came by and were throwing stuff at the tiger or lion, and lion jumped out of it and chased all three of them down through the course of the zoo and took them out. Jeffo Heffo, the coffee's making you panicky in your speech. I'm sorry, Jeffo. I don't feel panicked, but maybe a little bit too much coffee today. It's possible. Lord Boom, I've watched documentaries of whole prides of female lions trying to take down an elephant, and it just doesn't work. They can barely take down water buffaloes. Yeah, they do try it, but you see it takes a lot of them, man. You got to stack 2 or 3 up on the body and have one hold on to the leg, another one over on the other leg. Philip says, seen that, Jason. She was a poacher and it killed her baby elephant. There you go. That was right. I knew she had done something mean with it. But boy, going back and after she's already dead, going to her funeral, that was next level. A Daddy Dennis says, percentage chance John trades back from 16. 70% chance, I would say, Daddy. I'd put it a strong 70% chance. So, yeah, I think he's going to do it. I think the only thing that really would cause him to sit is if he's got a guy that he has as a blue chip guy that lands at 16. I've got some blue chip guys that I look at that I think fit into that mark, but he may have a different set of guys that he looks at and says, this is the guy to make that happen. But I would certainly say, absent that he would probably be moving back. Well, Hand Grenade says, can a hippo bite through a pillar of a leg of an elephant? I don't know. I think so. Don't they have like that insane bite force? And it's like one of the bigger bite forces in Mother Nature, I think, on a hippo's bite. Lee says, John Schneider not trading back. I don't think he's not. Is John Schneider not trading back? I don't think he's not. Yeah, I think he's going to move back too. I think that's what you meant. Then a lunatic, a hippo could bite his trunk off. That would hurt. Yeah, that would be a bit painful. I imagine that might cause an elephant to start running. Herbicide says elephant tusks are where all the damage comes from. It's true, man. You slide that thing in once through the skin and that thing's going deep. And they're like 5 feet long and you're getting right to the heart. I forgot about the tusks. At least the Seahawks will draft Troy Fautanu and trade down. I think Troy's going to be off the board, Fleece. I'd love him if he's there. All day long I'd take him, but I don't know. Uses hippo bites, ridiculously powerful and filled with bacteria. Slow death for elephant, but yeah, no instant kill. Yeah. Maybe the answer is they both end up going out in that kind of scenario. But yeah, the hippo bites, like I think one of the strongest in Mother Nature. It's insane. Hippos can run 19 to 23 miles an hour on land. Yeah, they're fast too. Jason Russ says, I guess you can't call the elephant being now just a great parent. Yeah. That's the only time they ever do really get is when they're territorial a little bit too, but if you go after the babies, that's when they'll get a little cray-cray with it. Elephant on hippo fights are pretty rare. They are. There was one I saw, it was a rhino one. I don't know if you guys saw that. There was an elephant that went at a rhino about a year ago, video that came out, like rolled the rhino and the rhino's baby, and the rhino tried to like stand up for its baby. They were just kind of near the elephant, and the elephant just turned and like rolled him over like it was nothing. Ryan White says, why don't we hate Russ more since he went to the Super Bowl Steelers? I think Russ has slowly, with the Seahawks fan base, worked his way around Ryan to a place of there being a little more sympathy than there's anger. It's kind of like a guy's paid his penance. You know, he's gotten his flogging and he's taken his lashes, and, you know, you sort of go, okay, you know, get your shirt back on and go out there and do what you can, man. You know, so it's hard to have a more stunning, harsher fall from grace than Russell Wilson had with this situation with Denver. And he's had to eat a lot of humble pie and take a lot of hits publicly, fair or unfair. That's just been the reality of it. And so I think that from many of the Hawk fans at this point, it's been a couple of years. He's taken his beating. I think many look at it where this is sort of almost a little bit of a last chance opportunity for Russ with Pittsburgh, where if it can't work here, if Justin Fields beats him out, you know, where is Russ going to play at that point? I don't know. So I think that does remove some of that from the situation. But there is still those folks out there. You see from Zen Lunatic and Ryan, there's still a little bit of a trace you can run through of some anger as far as from the anti-Russ folks. Brian E says Sean Payton made it a little easier to sympathize with Russ. Exactly. He sort of got buried a little bit there with Denver, and you go, okay. He's paid the penance. Huey says Russ still the greatest Seahawks quarterback ever, and the problem was Pete. Well, I definitely agree with you on the first part there, Huey. 100%. Ryan says, but the Steelers? I think what it is, Ryan, there is Russ didn't have a plethora of opportunities throughout the league. There wasn't going to be 10 landing spots for him. In many respects, there might have been 3. And by far, the Pittsburgh job is, if we look at those opportunities that were out there as far as chances between, you know, Las Vegas and Pittsburgh and maybe Washington, maybe. I don't even know if they were in on it at that point. He just didn't have a lot of other places to go, you know? So I think that's also represented by the fans' reaction to this as they look at it, right? And they go, well, he didn't have any other opportunities. He had to take Pittsburgh. There weren't a lot of people lining up for Wilson's services at that time. Misfits is Edge, Miles Cole, anyone? Boy, I couldn't quite get with it on his tape, Misfit. He's big. He's got really long arms. I want him to be stronger off the edge. I want him to set the edge harder. And he just didn't get that done enough for me on tape. I kind of came out just underwhelmed. Certainly, he's got an NFL-sized body, and he's got dimensions you can't teach. But the play on the field for me was just a little bit lacking. Just a little bit. What's up, 3 Hour? How you doing, man? How you doing, me? All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and put a bit of a button on this show today. One last thank you to the sponsor of the show, which would be, of course, Underdog Fantasy. You can use and click the code below in the description section to the Underdog Fantasy app and use my code NEST, or click that link directly at the app. And the first time you use it, they will match you up to $100 of your first deposit. So you can support the channel, support me, also get an extra $100 in your pocket by going to their site today to enter in that code. Some great ongoing contests throughout this off season. Baseball, basketball, hockey, it's still going on even after football has gone out the door. So take advantage of that today. Go win yourself some money over there on Underdog Fantasy. A couple of other notes I want to put out here onto the channel here as we finish up. First, we just started for members of the channel. I've started to release my draft guide out. So started with quarterbacks today. We'll be continuing on through the next couple of weeks of we're slowly kind of releasing that draft guide out to you guys. Please keep an eye out on your community post board for those links to the draft guide. I'm also going to be creating a clips channel a little bit. We're not creating a clips channel. I'm going to be kind of taking over. I've got a channel called Seahawks Scouting that I haven't been doing a lot with lately, but I've had on kind of the side over there where I'm going to transition that channel into a Hawks Nest clips kind of channel. So it'll be just basically just raw clips off of the live stream feeds. Very simple, very quick, very fast, but it is something that's been highly requested on the channel. So we're going to start getting that out to you guys. So do get subscribed up over to Seahawks Scouting. It's over there. It's in, if not the link in my channel here, I've got it up here on my board on my channel on the main board there. As you're going to be able to get those clips over there if you're not able to have as much time to always get through the full 3, 4, 5, 6 hour live stream shows when we're doing those. So do please go and get subbed up to that, as even after this stream today, we'll begin some clips going up over on that side of things, as I want to start to kind of build that up on this channel for the next year and getting more of the clips up for those folks that just want the shorter, quicker, easier to consume content. 3 hours says, will Sione Vaki play running back in the NFL? I've seen people say he's atrocious at safety. I don't like either of the two Utah safeties, in my opinion. 3 hour. Vaki is the worst of the two, and the tape is pretty rough throughout the board as far as what he's doing back there, especially from the free safety role. Yeah, I think that he has a unique burst and toughness with running with the football that could make him a better kind of rotational back in there that is in that lane where you're not looking to make him a feature back or anything like that, but just a rotational guy who gets his share of touches over the course of the game, and he can be very productive with those touches. I see more of an upside for him at this point in that way in the NFL. I don't know if everybody agrees with in NFL circles in that same respect, but that's my outlook on Sione, is that he's more running back than anything else. He was the Steelers, Raiders, Giants were Russ's only real options. Yeah. So it's kind of like, you can't get mad at the guy for having to make a pick of, places that are, there's not a lot of great options. And he made the option of picking the strongest team of those litter, which is understandable. Totally understandable. Lord Boom says, elephants with trunks out can see perfectly fine underwater. I think they have the advantage in the water against the hippo. I might take an elephant in the water against the shark. I'll take an elephant against a shark in the water. Maybe. As long as it's not too deep of water. As long as they can get those legs up and stuff a little bit, I guess. So it's going to be hard for them because the sharks are going to be so fast. But I don't know about the hippos. Hippos in water, man. That's their jam. Brian, you have a good one, man. Daddy Dennis, go Hawks. I think I'm convinced that the elephant is the most majestic badass on the planet. Hey, they might be. Definitely one of the biggest land animals you find. So they certainly deserve to be in the argument. They deserve to be in that argument. Daddy Dennis, Brandon going IRL, beach stream. Maybe at some point we'll do some IRL streams eventually. I'm not against it. I'm not against it. Brian E, go Hawks, man. Appreciate you. Phillips is going lot lizards. The Arizona lot lizards. I think it's one of the best. It's one of the better ones. I like it. Certainly, again, better than Cardinals, man. Holy Lord, better than Cardinals. Well, I want to thank all of you guys tonight for watching on the stream. Appreciate everyone. Do me a favor, do hit that like button for me if you guys could, as I do appreciate that very much so. We will be back here in just under 24 hours with the B&B show, looking at the running backs in this upcoming NFL draft. So appreciate you guys. If you want to go check that out tomorrow, I got a lot of content stacked up this week and throughout this month as we're kind of doing the last little bit of build up this offseason with the draft. until we get our month or two of real taking a deep breath in before we get to the start of the season and this exciting new start of the season here with the Seahawks and new coach and just a young, hungry team, hopefully ready to be on the rise. But I thank you guys tonight for watching. Do me a favor, hit that like button with one last chance here as we finish it up. If you could, the like button being hit helps this channel out a lot. If you're not subbed up, please do get subbed up, as that does help the channel as well continue its growth. I do appreciate everyone watching tonight. Thank you for tuning on in. Some great discussion as always. Hey, football, elephants, bears, who wins what? We go everywhere here on the channel. Movies, animals, whatever, wherever our mind's at. You know what I mean? That's the way it goes. But thank you guys for watching tonight. Appreciate you. Back in less than 24 hours. But until that time, please, my God, don't you ever forget. Don't you ever forget.